What colour is the universe?
Magnolia.
Everything's magnolia.
It's very spacious, you see, so you want a light colour, but you want to be overpowering if it was white.
You might do a dark ceiling just to bring it in a bit.
Yeah, it's deceptive, the universe, because from the outside, if you're God, it looks quite small. But when you're in there, it's really quite spacious with plenty of storage.
You're very, very, very close, I have to say. It's not quite magnolia.
Beige.
Absolutely right, 10 points. It is, in fact, beige, the universe. Brilliant.
Not to the naked eye, though.
Not to the naked eye, I quite agree, but it is official. Last year, after analysing the light from 200,000 galaxies, American scientists announced that the universe was pale green, not black with silvery bits, as it appears to us. Taking the Dulux paint range as a standard, it was somewhere between Mexican mint, jade cluster, and Shangri-La silk. However, to the embarrassment of the American astrophysical community, a few weeks after announcing their discovery to the American Astronomical Society, they had to admit that they'd actually made a mistake in their calculations, and the universe was, in fact, more a sort of taupe or beige colour. I thought it was gay whisper with a touch of amber glow, which are my favourite... this is my pancake colour. It's called gay whisper. Did you know that? It actually is. Literally true. Gay whisper.
Is gay whispers like Chinese whispers?
Only more fun. What was the job of Aristocles? Aristocles, better known to his friends as Wide Boy. It also means flat, oddly enough. It means wide and flat.
Flatulence.
What's a flat-billed sort of animal called?
Duck-billed platypus.
Plato is the answer.
Plato is the answer?
Yes, his real name was Aristocles, and he was known as the Wide One.
Plato's real name was Aristocles.
Aristocles. He was nicknamed Plato. There he is.
Oh, my word, he went to a terrible sculptor. It must be so upsetting when you... Look at that when they put the mirror behind you and pull it out like that.
May I ask who sculpted you last, sir? Yeah, well, Plato was indeed the schoolboy nickname of Aristocles, from the Greek wide, and it was given to him because of his broad shoulders. His real name was Aristocles, and Aristocles taught Aristotle. And what did Aristotle teach us, the world, about buzzards?
Oh, this will be something absurd, because...
He did say something absurd
It'll be ridiculous. It'll be something
It's
like
not
they
the soul
can
of the
read our
grand
minds
animal,
or something like that.
No, I'll tell you what it is, actually.
He felt that there were birds who didn't realise they were buzzards, and it was building up inside that they were latent buzzards.
Latent? Way, hey. You get 5 for something there. I don't quite know what it is, Ron, but you get 5 for something. I'll tell you the answer. Actually, he thought they had 3 testicles.
Oh, you see, this is the sort of thing he comes out with all the time. He's very overrated. Even though he knew a good sculptor, he looks all right there. Yeah. Look at the robe on him.
There's a really interesting thing I can tell you about buzzards, on the other hand. The Latin for buzzard, its taxonomical name is buteo, right? Now, there's a sort of, as it were, a subspecies of buzzard called a hobby, and it is subbuteo.
Oh, God.
Subuteo.
Oh. And the man who invented a game wanted to call it the hobby, and when he tried to patent it, they wouldn't let him use the word the hobby, so he called it after the Latin name for the hobby, which is subuteo.
And that's why one is kicking a little testicle around the ball.
If you like. How it all comes back. Amazing. That's where the name subuteo comes from.
It must be great to be a philosopher. None of us could sit there and count the testicles on a buzzard and really explain it or justify it. What are you doing? I'm counting the balls on a buzzard. Some better things. Well, I'm a philosopher. Oh, well, go ahead.
Yeah. Did you know that the Pope, when the Pope is elected, still has to have this ceremony in the Vatican? After the Pope is elected, the Pope is carried over a group of the cardinals. And now, of course, the Pope actually doesn't display himself, but in days gone by, he would display himself. And the cardinals, this still happens to this day, when the Pope is crowned, the cardinals, the Pope is carried on a chair over the cardinals, and they look up and they say, testiculos habet et bene pendentes.
No.
This is, yes, it is
He has balls and he's well hung?
No. It means that they are well hung. They are hanging well. And it goes back to the time of Pope Joan, when a girl masqueraded as a young pope. And since that's when the ceremony was introduced. And so the tradition continues to this day.
Fabulous, 5 points, brilliant, I love it. Well done. What do you think is the largest thing that a blue whale can swallow?
Another blue whale.
Surely this then would lead one to think you're leading us down a line there of a very small thing, because it's so big, and it'd be a very tiny thing. But I'd say something huge.
Kebab.
Yeah, a kebab.
Sideways.
Maybe is it a conceptual question? The blue whale, a very vain animal, perhaps the largest thing it has to swallow is its pride.
Yeah. Very good. Very good. Or a very gullible animal will swallow anything.
They're vegetarian, though, aren't they? Blue whales?
No, they're not vegetarian. No, it's...
But they eat fish, but, you know...
Yeah, that's sort of... Krill, in fact, is
and
the
they sieve it.
particular
They have a
name.
sieve system through their teeth.
They do sieve because the little krill are very, very small. In fact, it comes from the Dutch meaning, very small thing.
It takes ages.
Shrimps. I didn't know you did a blue whale.
I was doing a blue whale sieving its krill.
Everything right, except...
Do you know what? I've never seen that.
Everything right except the hands. Very good.
I reckon they could probably get a ping-pong ball down their neck.
Yes. Ping-pong ball is
Egg,
right.
something like an egg.
Egg, you're on the right lines.
A lobster.
Nothing bigger than a grapefruit.
Really?
They have tiny, tiny throats, and they can't expand them much. Well, they're the same size as their navels, about the size of a small side plate.
So they could be a supermodel. That's their kind of same diet, isn't it?
Yeah. Basically.
Yeah, except they're big fat.
Except that they do eat 3 tons of krill every day.
It's all because they have the biggest brain in the world, don't they? They're most enormous. But all they do with this huge brain is to lie in the water with their mouth open, sieving little bits of food.
Well,
so they're not really exploiting
they call
their
to
brain.
each other, covering 10,000 miles. Their voices can be heard. That's pretty impressive.
Well, I've never heard
mobile
of
phone.
blue whale.
Have you listened?
But
It's
sure,
like
10,000 miles underwater.
Yes.
Yeah, but not 6 feet up to the surface, nothing.
There's a blue whale about a mile away going, all right, I'm only here.
The whale song is
Shouting.
very indulgent jazz.
Do you think?
Yeah.
Free form. The next question goes to Alan. What is the connection between the Archbishop of Canterbury's left ear and Adam's belly button?
The ear and the belly... God, just as you said that, there was a painting came up behind
We
him.
do this, I'm afraid, yeah. I'm not going to ask
Hang
who
on.
did the painting. That would be an insult.
Adam's on the left.
Yes, well done,
That's his belly button there.
it would seem.
And the Archbishop of Canterbury's ear...
Yeah.
The only time I can ever think where you'd put your ear to someone's belly button would be to hear if their tummy was rumbling. You go, your tummy's rumbling, you're hungry, aren't you?
True.
Is that what it is?
I'm afraid... I don't want to astonish you, but I'm afraid it isn't.
Is it because Adam wouldn't have had a belly button, would he, being the first man, and neither of the
You're
right
right. You're really good. He is good, isn't he? I'm going to give him 3 points for that. The fact is, they're both purely decorative. Adam, of course, cannot have had a navel because he was created. He wasn't born, so there wouldn't have been an umbilical cord.
You're saying the Archbishop of Canterbury's left ear is purely
He
decorative?
describes it himself. It's purely decorative. He was born deaf in the left ear, so it has no function.
If his left ear is purely decorative,
Yes.
it's very unimaginative for him just to have an ear there, isn't it? He really could have had anything he wanted there at all. A donut or another organ, like a hand.
Racket, I would have said.
Badminton racket or a shuttlecock. A road sign. A little chiclet.
Or rather, sort of surreally, a portrait of Van Gogh.
Yeah, he could have had Van Gogh. You see, that's
That
brilliant.
was missing, yeah.
He'd have a little Van Gogh there, saying, as if to say, do you see?
Very good. Well, we've got something out of the wreckage. I'm inclined...
Who painted that picture?
1475 till 1564. I hate myself for saying that. Those are his dates.
He's quite correct.
no,
Michelangelo Buonarroti. We have to give 5 points to Johnny Sessions for knowing the birth and death dates of Michelangelo.
So sad.
We also have to hate him, incidentally.
Yes.
Very impressed. No. You can do this. I've done this with John Sessions at parties. When was Bruckner born?
1824, died 1896.
You see? It's right. Isn't it wonderful?
Mahler? 1860, born July the 7th in Kalist in Austria. Died 1911 in Kalist in Austria. It's a horrible sickness.
I met a man the other day who said he was a naval doctor. I didn't know they specialised that much. But according to Rita Mae Brown, if Michelangelo had been heterosexual, the Sistine Chapel would have been painted basic white and with a roller. What noise does the largest frog in the world make? Very good. Very good. That's your answer. Excellent. Answer. Any other thoughts?
Ribbit. A really loud...
Oh, dear. Who said ribbit?
Yeah!
Oh, dear, oh, dear, oh, dear.
Ribbit. How do you spell ribbit? Oh,
like that. Well, that's apparently how you spell it.
That's rabbit in New Zealand. Oh, but that's it, ribbits.
I will tell you what the sound of the... I can actually give you...
Tell us what you can do it.
I will. I'll give you my party impression.
A metallic noise, like I'm thinking of about...
No, there are frogs that do that.
Yeah.
No, I'll give you... This is it. It's... No, it isn't that. It's not that at all. No, that's the sound people being amusing, because, in fact, the 3-foot-long Goliath frog of Cameroon and Equatorial Guinea is mute. Entirely mute, makes no noise at all. There are 4,360 known species of frog, but only one of them, in fact, Alan, goes ribbit. Each species has its own unique call. The reason that everyone thinks all frogs, and this is true, the reason that everyone thinks all frogs go ribbit is that ribbit is the distinctive call of the southern Pacific tree frog. This is the frog that lives in Hollywood. Recorded locally, it has been plastered all over the movies for decades to enhance the atmosphere of anywhere from the Everglades to Vietnamese jungles. Frogs actually make a huge variety of noises. They croak, snore, grunt, trill, cluck, chirp, ring, whoop, whistle and growl.
And
they make noises like sheep. Yes?
They also say, it's not easy being green.
Less. Frogs make noises like sheep, like cattle, like squirrels and crickets. The barking tree frog yaps like a dog. The carpenter frog sounds like two carpenters hammering nails out of sync. And Fowler's toad makes noises like a band of Red Indians whooping. Most female frogs, like the Goliath frog, make no noise at all.
Because we can't get a bloody word in edgeway.
So this round is all about antelope, or antelopes. A is for antelope and B is for bongo. Apart from the obvious, what is a bongo?
Dave? I'm assuming that, apart from the obvious, assuming that the obvious is some kind of African antelope, then the less obvious answer would be it's a percussive instrument.
Well, now, we assumed that the obvious was a drum, but the answer is yes, it is indeed a type of
But if you introduce the subject as this round is all about antelopes...
You're right. It's a spectacular African forest antelope with a caramel and white striped body, as you see there. Much prized by poachers. There are only 100 reckoned to be left on the planet.
Can I just say there's only 100 people on the planet that understand the works of Jacques Derrida, so do you think they're all bongos?
That is what philosophers call a false syllogism.
Ah.
This programme's gone beyond me.
You know.
Who's Jacques Derrida, first of all?
Well, you can explain Derrida.
He's a French philosopher, and I don't understand a f***ing word he wrote.
What's a syllogism?
I know. All men have bollocks. All men can talk, therefore all men talk bollocks.
Yes. No.
Well, antelope is very bad at plastering, isn't it? Look at that. What's happening? He's not let the first coat set before the second coat.
Is there such a thing as syllogism?
Oh, dear.
Well, like a cheap version of Play-Doh, you mean?
There's a film called Jism that's just... and I was going to say that's just come out, but it's a...
Can I just say something that's very strange? Because there's there's some German chewing gum called Spunk, and you just have to be careful you don't swallow it. But in fact, I actually talked about that chewing gum on Clive James's show with you and Princess Diana. Do you remember? Seriously.
That was a dream.
It wasn't.
Rhymes with purple.
Ah. It's like orange, nothing does.
Oh, dear, oh, dear, oh, dear. Oh, dear, oh, dear, oh, dear. Oh, dear. No, there are two words in the English language that rhyme with purple. Two.
Burple.
I won't say everyday words, but there are two words. Now, I'm afraid you have to lose 10 points there.
That's okay.
I'll tell you the answer.
Lurple.
Tent. You won't get there. If you go through all the sounds known to man, you won't get there.
Maple circle.
Maple circle doesn't count.
Circle. Durple, yeah, furple, gurple, herple. Durple, curple, lurple, murple, nurple.
Do you know what you're doing on national television? Mrs. Davis's little boy has grown up to go nurple, purple, wurple.
Rurple, surple.
They're not common words, but...
If you had a swimming pool and you covered it in fur, it'd be a fur pool.
Furple.
It would. I'll tell you the answer. It's herple is one word.
I think I said
You did. 5 points, Daniel. 5 points, but 5 points taken away if you also mentioned any other sound. To herple is to hobble along with one leg dragging behind the other, halfway between a walk and a crawl. The other word, of course, you could have had was curple.
I think you'll find out.
But didn't I say I'd take 10 points away if there was a second one that you'd already said?
Yes.
Yes, but I'm going to take that back. I'm not going to. Curple is the leather strap passing under a horse's tail.
Under the tail of a horse.
Is buckled to the saddle to stop it slipping forwards. It's better known as a cropper. It's also curple. It's the rump or hindquarters of a horse. Now known as an I'm an idiot. Or now known as the croup. The word appears in a rhyme in the work of Scotland's national poet, and I shall give it to you. Aby mer vonti olmahap, dus hinging o'er my curple, than ony ermin everlap, or proud imperial purple. What begins with A has 6 C's and no B's. Clive.
Is it the Welsh alphabet? I'm only guessing. You haven't mentioned the L's, which are there.
No L's mentioned. That would be the clincher.
No B's.
No B's as in...
No B's like that.
Or...
So...
Is it 6 C's as in the ocean?
6 C's. 6 C's. With A.
It's America. There are no states in America beginning with B, and then there are 6 C's. There must be California, there are 2 Carolinas, Connecticut. I think there are 6. So I think I've come up with the right, though possibly also wrong answer. But I'm terrifically pleased with it. I don't care if I get any points or not.
No, you don't get points, but you certainly get the admiration of us all.
I'm not feeling admiration.
You were better at it, but on the other hand, let's turn our attention to the question.
Antarctica.
Brilliant, thank you very much. It is the right answer. Antarctica.
Oh, see?
Quite right.
Well, I think I'm right. I'm not accepting it.
But that's not strictly true, is it? Because, of course, you have the Antarctican ice bee.
If you did, then the question would be meaningless.
Yes.
I wouldn't put it beyond you to go now to Antarctica with a bee in a matchbox. Just so you could get a point. And a honeybee. You worked out the thrust of the question.
Yes.
Bees as in buzz, 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 and seas as in oceans. It is bordered by the Ross Sea, the Davies Sea, the Weddell Sea, the Bellinghausen Sea, the Lazarev Sea, and the Amundsen Sea, but not one, as I say, not one little member of the 92,000 hymenopteral bees and wasps exists or has its being in Antarctica.
The what bees?
They form part of the group Hymenoptera.
Hymen?
It means wedding in Greek, and there was a myth about the bees officiating at the wedding of Zeus, which I told you about a few weeks ago, and I remember you being very bored by it then. I'm disappointed that you haven't remembered.
The bees in charge of a wedding?
They They catered for the wedding.
Well,
how they came
mainly
up with
honey-based.
They came up with honey. They invented honey specifically for it. Where do the diamonds come from in the world?
South Africa.
Oh, no, he's done it again. No. All the diamonds in the world come from volcanoes. All diamonds are formed under immense heat and pressure, hundreds of kilometres beneath the Earth, and are brought to the surface in volcanic eruptions. 20 countries in the world produce diamonds.
Japan.
Just now, South Africa is only the 5th largest producer after Australia, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, Botswana, and Russia. You did. Well done, you. Now, here's a quite interesting thing. Diamonds are made of pure carbon, and so is graphite, the stuff that pencils are made from, the lead of a pencil. But with the carbon atoms arranged slightly differently, so slightly differently that diamond is the hardest known substance on Earth, with a score of 10 on the Mohs hardness scale, but graphite is one of the softest...
Like, as in Mo Better Blues?
No, as in MOH, the name of the fellow who gave us this hardness scale. Diamond score 10, and graphite scores very, very low, 1.2 or something like that.
What about Audley Harrison?
He is well armed. How many wives did Henry VIII have?
Number 4, please.
6. The 6 wives of Henry VIII.
Just because other people have made the mistake, it's no excuse for you to make it too.
He had 6 wives.
He had major commitment problems, didn't he? I imagine every time he said, "Oh, it's not you, it's me." I suppose they had a trial separation, which involved a brief trial and a very major separation.
Of head from shoulders, exactly right.
It must have been very difficult for the new woman in his life each time, because she'd say, "Oh, I don't know, Henry. Everywhere I look, I just see her face because it's on a pole."
Absolutely, no. Yes.
Can I just say something interesting about Henry VIII?
Yes.
Right, when he died and his body was moved from Greenwich up to wherever it went, Selfridges or somewhere.
Maybe Westminster Abbey. We'll check on that.
Maybe Westminster Abbey, possibly Kentucky Fried Chicken. I don't know. But his guts were so rotten and it was such a hot day that his stomach exploded.
Oh, what a
Isn't that a nice image?
Yes, he was syphilitic and he was huge and he was a mess of a man.
He sounds
by that
bloody
time.
gorgeous.
As a young man, he was. As a young man, he was considered one of the most attractive men in all of Renaissance Europe. He was much admired.
I prefer
athletic, musical, poetic.
Bloated myself.
Yes, he did get a bit bloated. I can't understand people who do. No, yes, it's an interesting fact. The real answer is 3 or 4. Henry's 4th marriage to Anne of Cleves was annulled on 2 grounds. It was never consummated, and she was already betrothed to Francis, Duke of Lorraine. This was correct in law at the time, and all parties agreed that no legal marriage had ever taken place. That leaves 5 wives. The Pope declared Henry's 2nd marriage to Anne Boleyn void because Henry was still married to his first wife, Catherine of Aragon. And the king himself, as head of the new Church of England, declared that his first marriage was invalid on the correct legal ground that a man could not marry his brother's wife, and Catherine Aragon had been married to his brother Arthur.
Did he or did he not have 6 weddings?
Yes, he did, but that wasn't the question I asked.
And did he say, "This is my wife"? 6 different people. 6 different mothers-in-law all said of him, "He is my bloated syphilitic son-in-law."
But by his 2nd marriage, he said he'd never been married because he'd never had a wife, because his first wife he could not be married to.
What about all the family saying, "Yes, you did, we were there"?
We were there at the wedding, but we were never
We heard the
legally.
speeches, they'd wake up in the morning dead, wouldn't they?
But there was no legal spousal status. That's the point we're trying to make. But of
How
course,
many toast racks did he have?
that's the way. Count the toast racks and
Now,
you'll find out.
can I ask a question about that painting?
Yes.
Is it all wrong in perspective? It looks 2D to me.
All Holbein's pictures are a bit flat.
They
'Cause
are.
He did one of Martin Luther and it's very flat.
Yes.
It's like a pancake or
Though
an
he could certainly do perspective tricks, because he did a marvellous one, which you have to see from below, didn't you? We may find a picture.
Oh, yeah,
of
that's
it one
what
day.
he said after he bollocks it up. You have to see it from below.
It was very...
Holbein's really
It was a sort of elongated skulls and things, and then when you move underneath it, the foreshortening effect of actually being under the painting, it suddenly becomes exactly the right proportion.
Michelangelo painted the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel.
Good Lord, you are extraordinary. How do you do these things?
It took 4 years.
Yeah.
Which is the same length of time it takes to paint the Forth Bridge in Scotland.
You're struggling towards being interesting. I may have to give you 2 points. Does anyone remember there's a wonderful line in that film, The Agony and the Ecstasy, which is about where Charlton Heston plays Michelangelo and Rex Harrison
Charlton
plays...
Heston plays Michelangelo?
Yes.
Yeah, the effete Italian homosexual.
Yeah, that's the one.
Played by the president of the gun club.
He was an athletic Italian homosexual.
I thought he was a wussy one.
He may well have preferred man-on-man action. That doesn't mean he was Juliet Clary. He could have been butch like me.
When I say wussy one, I don't mean he was gay. I mean he was a bit of a...
No.
I thought
the other way round.
I thought Da Vinci was the hard case.
No, Michelangelo was an animal. He was physical.
Michelangelo was.
Strong,
he never washed.
Very strong.
He
that's
stank.
right. Beard and
Alan Yentob said this.
But he preferred to take it up with Gary Glitter. Now, depending on whether you believe the Pope or indeed the King, or both of them together, Henry VIII, therefore, had either 4 wives or 3. What did the ancient Greeks use blackberries for?
Tarts, pies, and occasionally a nice salad.
Is it to do with health or beauty?
It is to do with health, not really beauty. I think we'd be pushing it, but health.
They used to push them up their backside.
Yes.
To comfort them from the radish. When the radish came in, the blackberries would cushion the blow.
It's sort of almost true, because they used it as a specific against piles. And I dare say, having a few radishes hammered up, you would probably induce piles. Now, 1 in 10 ancient Athenians did it regularly until the Macedonians put a stop to it in 322 BC. What am I talking about? They're not doing it there, incidentally,
That's
in
not
that
a
picture
clue.
behind.
They pay their utilities bills by direct debit.
Would you recommend the direct debit route?
It takes the hassle out of it,
Does
Stephen.
it?
It takes the hassle out of it.
You can't put a price on peace of mind. So, what do Greeks...
Is it
What did they do?
Greek or something that a
Something Greeks
Macedonian
invented, something we do. Something we do.
We do it?
Something we do.
Oh, elections.
Yeah.
They voted. They voted for all their chieftains, all their leaders, all their wise men. They voted for their justice at the Areopagitica, and a democracy was born. It was snatched crudely away from them by the Macedonians, invented, though, in ancient Greece.
Speaking of crudely...
Lasted only 180 years.
Pinto.
The Greeks regarded small testicles as rather artistic.
I'm a man out of his time.
You get 5 points for being British. Only 10% of the population ever had the vote. Greek women had to wait another 2,274 years until they finally got theirs in 1952. The patron saint of QI is the ancient Roman Gaius Plinius Secundus, better known as Pliny the Elder. His natural history is the great encyclopedia, covering all human knowledge at the time. Life, he said, is my subject, and he estimated that the 37 volumes that he wrote contained 20,000 important facts derived from 2,000 books. The 28th book of his magnum opus is what concerns us now, packed as it is with antidotes, state-of-the-art remedies culled from the great medical minds of the ancient world. So, Danny, what does Pliny confidently expect to cure by recommending that the patient eats the heart of a black jackass outside, out of doors that is, on the 2nd day of the moon?
Mumps. Excellent, I have no idea. So, there was a suggestion once that the key to eternal life lies in the elbow, and if it can be consumed, then you would live forever, which is why nobody, no matter how hard you try, can actually lick their own elbows. Even though...
Clearly, we were all
I know the audience are now desperate to have a go, but it's so attainable until you come to here, and whether the theory came first or the curse came second... The idea that you cannot lick your elbow, but they say if you can, you will live forever.
But isn't that how socialism was invented, that someone said, come, let us lick each other's elbows?
It doesn't look good.
Well, the thing is...
So,
that no young man of licking age spent any time at all trying to lick his elbow.
The question was, why would you eat the heart of a black jackass by the light of the
Well, it must be something awfully serious you'd have wrong with you. Because the heart of a... Now, where do you get a black jackass, anyway?
These days.
These days?
Yeah.
Kentucky Fried Jackass.
Well, I'll tell you the answer.
Is it gout?
It's not gout. It's not gout. It's actually epilepsy. although he also prescribes for epilepsy the consumption of lightly poached bear's testes, a camel's brain, dried and taken with honey, or, in extremis, a draught of fresh gladiator's blood.
He doesn't mention Tegretol, then?
No. Is that the specific that you favour?
Yes, it is. That's a specific drug for epilepsy.
Do you have epilepsy yourself?
No.
No, but you know those who do.
She knows loads about drugs.
Does she?
Yeah.
Yeah, because she's a nurse.
And a drug
Of course
addict.
she would. Do you think you could teach an octopus? There's an octopus.
Well, could I teach an octopus?
Well, yeah. What can...
I have seen an octopus.
Yes, good.
I went scuba diving.
I've seen one on a plate in a restaurant in Greece.
They use the ink to make risotto.
They do.
Do you know how octopuses mate?
Tell.
They mate with their third right arm.
Do they?
Yes.
We all do that.
Yeah, right. Yeah, they use their third right arm to transfer the sperm to the female, which is kind of handy because it leaves the other 7 free to hold the kebab and the remote control.
Is it right they've got a brain per tentacle, or am I making that up?
No, you're not making it up, Clive. It's a matter of some debate amongst students of the octopus.
Oh, I'm glad to join in then.
It doesn't have a sort of discrete, separate brain, but some people believe that it needs such extraordinary neural power in order to control the thousands of different suckers separately, which it can do, that the sort of intelligence is located somewhere. Not exactly a brain as we know it, but they are very bright, and they can be made to recognise colours. But there's a particular trick they can be made to do, which is quite impressive.
And this is what we need to teach you.
Right.
Yeah, which it can be taught.
Play the drums. Play the drums?
You can... No. So good.
Assemble a drum kit really quickly.
Yeah. It can unscrew. I can unscrew the lid off a bottle or some sort of container, yes. And it can take up to 10 seconds or an hour, depending on how tight the lid is. But the odd thing about octopus...
So it's like girls.
Yes.
Girls can't do that,
they loosen it first, as you well know.
The one thing that men can do now, because the women can see everything else apart from open jars.
Yes.
And once women work out how to do that, we're finished. Yeah. Now you've got octopuses to do it, you don't need...
We're doomed as a sex. The odd thing about them is they don't have very good memories, so they have to learn every day. So scientists can teach them, but they have to teach them each time how to do it, and they'll pick it up very quickly. But the next day, the same octopus will forget it.
They've got 3 hearts.
And they've got 3 hearts. I'll give you 5 points because that's quite interesting and true.
It is.
Very good.
Because if you cut one of the tentacles off, it will still reach for food.
If you could keep it in the kitchen, take the lids off all your jars.
Now, this third round is about actors. After weeks of being pointedly ignored on tour by Sir John Gielgud, Clive Morton, the character actor, plucked up the courage to knock on his dressing room door. Gielgud opened it. "Thank God it's you," he said. "For one dreadful moment, I thought it was going to be that ghastly bore, Clive Morton." Now, why, Hugh? Yes? Why does the actor Edward Woodward have 4 Ds in his name?
No, what are you doing? What are you doing?
I'm sorry, it was a spasm.
You can't do that.
I'll put it out. Just carry on.
Did you know, this is quite interesting.
Yes, good. That's what we're here for.
Did you know?
Very good.
Kiwi fruit uses more than its own weight in aviation fuel to get from New Zealand to Europe.
Another 5 points. It sounds mad, but is of course true, absolutely.
And regarding the Edward Woodward,
yes,
that's how you spell it.
No, Hugh, no.
No, really, that's fine. I was going to say exactly that it's got that many D's in it because that's his name. If you took the D's out, it would be a different name.
And what name would it be? Exactly, it'd be Iwa-woo-woo. It's a sort of structural device, like a joist, which stops his name collapsing into the sort of spongy mass of Iwa-woo-woo.
You were mentioning Edward Woodward, and before that you mentioned John Gielgud. John Gielgud, when he first heard the name Edward Woodward, said,
It's an interesting name. It sounds like a fart in the bath.
It does. Very good. I want to talk a little about Alexander. He's worth it. According to one book, though God knows what kind of book it was, he was the 33rd most influential human being who ever lived. I don't know what sort of
Is that him there?
would write a book there. That's a representation of the
Oh, so he was great because there were 4 of him?
No, he was just in an early boy band.
And he could do that trick where he puts his eyeballs down and you just see the eye whites. What did Alexander the Great do with the banana and the ring-necked parakeet?
Parties all night long.
Was he like
Well, it's a hell of a night.
that go into those people that go into casualty and say, I was just hoovering and I slipped and it went.
It went.
I put the parrot in to get it out.
Well, no, the answer is actually that Alexander the Great introduced them to Europe. Yes, he brought along the banana, the ring-necked parakeet, sugar, cotton and crucifixion. All of these useful commodities or practices came from India, in fact, apart from crucifixion, which was invented by the Persians.
Persia's in Iraq now, isn't it?
No, it's Iran.
God, you're like George Bush, aren't you?
Now, back to Alexander. What was his hair regime, and which part of him was dipped in honey?
Henna.
Lemon juice.
Like henna, because, of course, redhead's very common, that part.
Jojoba!
Not
Where I come from, that's the month after September.
Very good. Very good. Very good, Billy Connolly. No, well, the answer is actually he washed his hair in saffron. To keep it lustrous and shiny orange. Quite right. Saffron, which was a seriously upmarket type of shampoo. Because at the time, saffron was as rare as diamonds and more expensive than gold. And all of him was dipped in honey is the answer. When he died, he was embalmed in honey. What is the youngest age, think carefully, what is the youngest age that a child can knock back a pint of mulled wine or a couple of double brandies in a restaurant beer garden in the UK?
18.
Oh, dear. No. No, dear. No. Yes.
12, if you met him on the internet.
You can't have double brandy in a pub unless you're 18.
The answer is 5 years old.
Yeah.
What? What? 5 years old. Yes. Yeah. It's only illegal for children between 5 and 18 to consume alcoholic drinks in the bar, a place defined by the law as chiefly or exclusively for the sale and consumption of alcoholic drinks. Pub restaurants and gardens don't count, provided the child has the drink bought by an adult.
Oh, they're not allowed to the bar.
Not allowed to buy
How
it.
does the child get the round in then?
No, they don't. That's the beauty of being a child.
That's why the whole practice died out, because they wouldn't get around. Drink, not you.
Say wait.
Not you either.
5. Describe either James Bond's Bradford or his Vespa.
Well, is James Bond's Bradford a bit like, is it James Hewitt as Yorkshire, or Thomas Hardy's Wessex? They're just rebranding it. So in describing
James Herriot,
James
Hewitt.
Yeah, sorry,
James Hewitt Spencer.
I sense I got it wrong there, but I
couldn't quite put your finger on
Is
it.
it an item of clothing or a briefcase or a pair of shoes?
No, it's... That's closer than
anything I said.
It's closer than the city in Yorkshire, certainly. Oh.
Is it?
What is he almost best known for?
Martinis.
Yes.
Ian Fleming worked in naval intelligence during the war.
He did. He did indeed.
Is that interesting enough?
Pretty well known, though, isn't it, dear? Yeah. Really. Sorry, did I call you dear just then? Yeah. Sorry. So sorry. How that happened. I do apologise. It is, in fact, the official name for a martini that is shaken and not stirred. Most martinis are stirred, but one is shaken. It's called a Bradford. They're very specific names. If you put 2 olives on a stick, it's called a Franklin, after Franklin Roosevelt. Yes. If you put a cocktail onion on the stick, it's called a...
It's called a cocktail onion on a stick.
Oh.
Well, obviously it's called something.
Yes, it's called the Gibson, yes. But in fact, because the Bradford contains 3 measures of Gordon's, 1 measure of an extraordinary sort of vermouth called Quina Lillet. It says, when looking at it, I'm sure it must be pronounced Lié, I suppose. I mean, put a Lillet in there, you wouldn't have any drink left, would you?
Why would you... If someone offered me a drink called a Bradford, I'd assume it's like vodka and a rasher of streaky bacon sticking out the top.
Maybe a pork pie on a knitting needle, something like that.
Well, is there an official place Mud's names? I mean, why is a rusty nail called a rusty nail and all the Collins family have drinks named after them? Is there a clearinghouse for this?
There are histories of this. I mean, the first Bloody Mary was actually was in St Regis Hotel in New York and was actually called a Red Snapper, which is rather a good name for
fish,
it.
though.
In Australia, they call
a Red Snapper.
They call a Virgin Mary. They call a Bloody Shame, which is rather good. They're all very good. They're all kinds of good names. Yeah.
I'll have a bloody shame.
But no, I mean, of course, cocktails developed during Prohibition because the bathtub gin was so notoriously gut-rotting and tasting so dreadful that all kinds of additions were made to it. But Bond insisted on a shot of vodka, so he had it's usually 6 to 1, six gin to 1 of vermouth or vermouth, whichever you prefer, and he added this vodka, which makes it strictly not a martini, so the Bond actually gave his own name, which was a Vesper. There's a rather good phrase in one of the Bond books, to Bond, the best drink of the day was the drink he had in his head before the first drink of the day. Rather good, isn't it? We sort of know
I don't really
how
like
he feels.
James Bond.
No, he's cruel. He's a cruel man.
No, I don't think I'd like him. If I met him, I think I'd think he's a bit of a prat.
Yes.
I'm undoing your zip with my magnet.
Yes. No, Alan, you should read the books.
I don't have time to read the books. I haven't read all yours yet.
Well, no, that's...
nobody's done
read
that.
Fleming first. read Fleming first. They're awfully good. They really are. Now, this chapter of Casino Royale begins. Bond lit his 80th cigarette of the day. Now, how can you dislike a man? I mean, that's... It's full of interesting stuff. For instance, Bond has these strange ideas. He has this idea that homosexuals can't whistle, for example. It occurs, I think, in Russia with Love. Yeah. I want you to go and stand in the corner.
You just put your lips together and blow.
I've had a blowjob.
You can easily say the word Wimbledon. Yeah.
Which is a cocktail. And you get it in a shooter glass, and it's got something like Drambuie or Bailey's or something in it.
Oh, how sophisticated.
And then it's got... and then it's got whipped cream out of a can on the top of it. And you get it put on the counter like that, and you're not allowed to use your hands to drink it. Hence, it's because someone grown it up. So you have to put your hands behind your back and go...
I've never been to Essex. Anyway... where do all the diamonds come from in the world?
South Africa.
Oh, no! He's done it again. No, all the diamonds in the world come from volcanoes. All diamonds are formed under immense heat and pressure, hundreds of kilometres beneath the Earth, and are brought to the surface in volcanic eruptions. 20 countries in the world produce diamonds.
Japan.
Just now, South Africa is only the 5th largest producer after Australia, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, Botswana, and Russia. You did. Well done, you. Now, here's a quite interesting thing. Diamonds are made of pure carbon, and so is graphite, the stuff that pencils are made from, the lead of a pencil. But with the carbon atoms arranged slightly differently, so slightly differently that diamond is the hardest known substance on Earth, with a score of 10 on the Mohs hardness scale, but graphite is one of the softest...
Like, as in Mo Better Blues?
No, as in MOH, the name of the fellow who gave us this hardness scale. Diamond score 10, and graphite scores very, very low, 1.2 or something like
what
that.
What about Audley Harrison?
He is well on. Who discovered Australia?
James Cook.
Oh, Joe, I'm so sorry. No, apart from the Aborigines, it was the Chinese who reached it as early as 1432. When Cook arrived, James Cook, in 1770, not only was he not first, he wasn't a captain either. He was Lieutenant Cook, nor was he the first European. The Dutch had got there 150 years before that. Nor was he even the first Englishman, who was William Dampier in 1688.
What's wrong with the Chinese and the Dutch?
The Dutch have discovered almost everything first, but they just thought of as being people, homosexuals who smoke joints. Actually, there's a lot more to them than that. A lot more to the Dutch.
But what is it with the Chinese that they went round really early on and then never went anywhere, just stayed at home and bred ferociously?
we're wandering happily around the globe, and this is a good thing, but I'll just return us to Australia. It has, of course, been inhabited by Aborigines for at least 40,000 years, possibly as many as 60,000. So if anyone gets the credit, it should be them. But what nationality were the original Aborigines? Yes?
They came across a land bridge which was later separated by shifting of tectonic plates.
Well,
so they will have come from Southeast Asia, probably. So I would say they were Chinese.
I know what you think. It's certainly true, isn't it? Australia was connected.
Separated, which is why they have marsupials. And why they have all their own brands of lager.
Exactly. I want you to think not Australian. The first Aboriginals were not Australian or anything to do with Australia. Where was the term Aborigine first used for peoples?
Was it in the Isle of Wight?
A wild stab. It could so easily have been right. No, it wasn't.
It's the word for the indigenous population.
The origin, yes. The original Aborigines lived in the part of Italy where Rome now stands. And they were called Aborigines. And so it's for some reason has stuck most with the Aboriginal Australasians, but there are Aboriginal Canadians. You could call the American Indians or Native Americans, you could call them Aboriginals if you wanted.
You could, but it was more fun to call them Redskins.
Yes. I wouldn't try it, though, in America.
No.
You'd have your balls turned into a small purse. We're doing very well. Now, what does...
A very big purse, I think you're...
What am I thinking of?
And have my balls turned into a rucksack.
Now, Sean, in 1913, the world long jump champion was an Englishman who could leap backwards from the floor onto a mantelpiece without losing his balance. What interesting position was he offered after the First World War? There he is.
But he's
Playing cricket.
He was an extraordinary sportsman.
He could, what, when you said he could leap...
He could leap backwards from a stationary position onto a mantelpiece. Just leap. He was described by John Arlott as the most very talented Englishman ever born. He was captained England and Surrey for cricket. He appeared in a FA Cup final. He had the world long jump record.
This isn't your relative, is it?
It is C.B. Fry, yes.
What I want to know is, how did he discover he could do that?
I suppose in phases.
How did you find out you can do that? You can just be standing in front of the fireplace and go... Wait, is it a really boring party? Lord Delphont was changing a turn for a canapé. Whoop, I'm out of it.
Maybe there was a rattlesnake on the floor or something like that.
Well, he was quite...
Somebody came in looking for a cocktail and said, I fancy a blowjob, and he would have...
No, he was a Fry. He would have welcomed it.
Just put himself in a better position. What's his name?
Charles Burgess Fry, C.B. Fry, the greatest all-rounder the country's ever produced. What extraordinary position was he offered after the First World War?
And also,
Chest of drawers?
was that a mantelpiece with or without ornaments?
Without.
Someone had a big tank of tropical fish.
Yeah. Competitive mantelpiece leaping, you just clear it. Yeah, you move most of the stuff off it.
Maybe he was on the mantelpiece, lost his balance, and thought, I must get back up before anyone's noticed.
Lost his balance, fell on the sofa, bounced back up.
Yeah. Then what? Blimey, did you just jump backwards onto that mantelpiece?
Or was it, one of these sports we play?
It's a very old English pursuit, jumping backwards.
Yes.
And there's a famous canal jumper from the Black Country, someone like Jack Darby, and he could leap 32 foot across a canal from a standing jump. There's a statue of him on one of the canals. And the way he did it was weights. He had two weights in his arms, and he'd swing them like that, and then throw them, and they'd take him across, and he'd go to the other side. And his name was something like Jack Darby, and he died in the 30s.
He died in the canal.
He could also, he had the world...
Statues of the bottom of the commemorative stone.
I think he had the world jumping backwards record, 13 foot.
Oh, there you are. Well, there you are. You see, it means something. Well, C.B. Fry, to bring us back to Charles Burgess.
I was thinking, did he not feel, you know, once he'd done the mantelpiece thing and everyone went, wow, that's fantastic.
Yes.
Right, that is so brilliant. After that, you think it maybe started to pall a bit? They think, oh, he's doing the mantelpiece thing again. Right?
It's the thing he did, probably... It was just a party piece he did 3 or 4 times. It wasn't enough that he headed the class list at Oxford. He had the world long jump record. He played in an FA Cup final, captained England and headed England batting averages for 4 years in succession, spoke 5 languages. And what was this extraordinary position?
Well, he's obviously a member of the Fry family.
Well, that is extraordinary enough.
So he was offered the quizmaster on a panel game.
No, I would tell you.
He was the position by a governmental thing?
By the most governmental thing that existed after the First World War.
League of Nations.
The League of Nations.
So he was head of the League of Nations.
No, he was
referee. He refereed the playoffs for the League of Nations.
Lord
President of the
No,
League of
more
Nations.
important.
King of the League of Nations.
No, not of the League of Nations. One of the nations within the League of Nations.
Oh, he was king of Albania.
It was offered the throne of Albania.
Yes.
There you are. Finally, we got that. Well
he
done.
said, I don't want the throne, just give me the mantelpiece.
No. Stop. I wish I never mentioned the bloody man.
How high is that?
It was just one of the many things he could do. All right, let's not refine on it. Let's not make it too big a deal. He did it once or twice. The reason he was offered it was his great friend was Prince Ranjit Singh. Together, he and Fry dominated the cricketing world. It was known as the golden age of cricket, still is. And Prince Ranjit Singh was an important officer in the League of Nations when it was founded. And he brought Fry along as a speechwriter to the League of Nations, and they met the Albanian delegation, which was rather unhappy because the king of Albania had been deposed and run away, and so they offered Fry the throne, and he accepted. But his friend Hilaire Belloc, the poet, said no. He said, don't accept it. He said, all you need is a cellar full of wine and the society of those who love you. Turn it down. So he did. What are atoms mostly made of?
Well, they are not most. They are just made of the thing that they are. In that they are not combined with other atoms. They are alone.
Yeah.
Therefore, they are just an atom.
It's not exactly a trick question, but they're mostly made of nothing by a very, very long way. Even the atom of stone or diamond is more nothing than it is anything solid.
It's like a tiny, really small little piece of nothing. Does it have protons and electrons, or is that a molecule?
You're right, no. Protons and neutrons in the middle, which is the nucleus, and then the electron, which whizzes round the outside.
I remember that from physics.
Yeah. An atom, in fact, is much, much emptier, relatively speaking, than the whole solar system. Ernest Rutherford, the first man to describe the inside of an atom, likened it to a few flies in a cathedral. That's what those little particles are inside the atom. The simplest element in the universe is hydrogen. It has a nucleus of just one proton, around which orbits a single electron. Now, if the proton were the size of a drawing pin, the electron would be the size of a pinhead, and it would be 1 kilometre away.
Yeah, but if I were to put a pineapple on my head, I'd look like Carmen Miranda, but I don't.
I don't think you quite entered into the spirit.
Well, they're really hard to divide up into more than one part.
Yes, because the word means that. It means no cut.
Can't split.
Tom, yes. I think it's tomeo is the Greek for I cut, and as in appendectomy, to cut the appendix and so on. And the rather wonderful English word tmesis, which, as far as I know, is the only English word that begins with the letters TM, T-M-E-S-I-S, which is rather wonderful. Which is that when you cut a word in half by putting another word inside, like saying absubliminutely or sensational or something like that.
Or Scunthorpe.
Or Scunthorpe, thank you very much. Who was the first man to claim that the Earth goes round the sun?
Copernicus?
Oh, no! Not Copernicus.
Galileo.
Nor Galileo. No.
Galileo.
No, he will not do the Planetary. No, it wasn't a playwright.
Euripides' trousers.
No, it was a mathematician.
Sophocles. Archimedes.
No. No, not Archimedes.
Og the Clever.
His name is Aristarchus.
Yes.
Aristarchus of Samos.
He runs a restaurant on the 70th.
He was born in 310 BC.
He's still alive?
A whole 1,800 years before Nicolaus Copernicus. Not only did Aristarchus suggest that the Earth and the planets travelled around the Sun, he also calculated the relative sizes and distances of the Earth, Moon and Sun and worked out that the heavens were not some celestial sphere, but a universe of almost infinite size. How many planets are there in the solar system?
9.
Oh, once again, 9. not the right answer. It's another forfeit of 10, I'm afraid. I'm afraid the answer is actually 8.
I'm going to write them down. You
Yeah,
carry
all
on.
right, OK.
Mars.
Yes, Mars is one.
Pluto.
No.
Oh, here we go again.
Pluto is a planet.
Goofy.
It was discovered in the 1930s. It was the most recent planet to be
It was
discovered.
discovered by Clive Tombaugh in 1930, exactly, yes.
But it's a collection of gases. It's not actually...
It's not a planet.
Not a
By
planet.
no criterion by which planets are judged could Pluto be said
It's really,
to be a
really
planet.
big, and it goes round the sun.
Yes, so it's not really, really big at all. It's tiny.
Well, that's why it took so long to find. Don't be hard on it.
No, there are many others. There are many others of the same size that are going around the sun, which are not classified as.
I watched an entire BBC series
Called The Planets.
Called The Planets.
Yeah.
Banged on and on about there being 9.
There was a great movement afoot to discover the 9th planet. Hubble, the astronomer, had predicted there would be a 9th planet, and Clive Tombaugh in 1930 discovered Pluto and claimed that it was a planet. But almost everybody now has agreed that it isn't.
What is it then?
It's a tiny ball of ice. They're the sort of earthy, solid planets, like Mars and Venus and
But they're not
Mercury.
those solid, because Uranus and is known as one of the gas
That's what I was
giants.
starting to say. There are the 4 Earth ones and there are the 4 gas ones. That's what I'm saying.
out with it and
But
say
Pluto is
Uranus.
neither. On the other hand, if Pluto can be said to be a planet, then so can the asteroids, already technically known as minor planets. In the year 2000, 71,788 of these, with more being discovered every year. Pluto is only twice as big as the largest of these, which is Ceres, and is not only much tinier than all the other planets, but is smaller than 7 of their moons as well.
Is there a rest stop between you and the end of this statement?
What man-made artifacts can be seen from the moon with the naked eye? Yes.
Someone said it in the audience.
What was it?
Great Wall of China.
Oh, you've done it again! I can't believe it!
Which moon are we talking about?
Rich Hall, I think I love you. That's a damn good. You've got to have 10 for that. The fact is, nothing man-made could be seen on Earth from the moon.
Too far away.
It's much, much too far away. Even the continents are quite different.
What's invisible and travels at 38 miles an hour?
Yes. Number 4, please.
I think is it the air that we expel from our nasal passages.
It isn't that, I'm sorry to say.
38 miles an hour and it's invisible.
Yes.
Got to be a ghost on a moped, or a stealth Skoda, or a Virgin train.
Hey, no.
Is it... All right, OK. Is it a wind, like, you know, the Sirocco or the Mistral or something like that?
One of those winds. It's not one of those. This is something that often travels a great deal faster, but it has been recorded as travelling at 38 miles an hour. You could overtake it freewheeling on a bicycle.
A fart.
It usually goes much, much faster. I mean, really fast.
How fast is a fart, though?
No, well, no, please. That's not very high. No.
Well, no, because they've measured how fast you sneeze is.
Well, they've measured maximum speeds of...
no one's ever measured how fast
Well, that's
we
so
expel
varied, aren't
gas.
they, as we know.
Do you wonder why?
Yeah.
You're working in laboratory conditions all day. There's Bunsen burners around.
Exactly.
You could fart and someone could be on the other side of the lab with a stopwatch. And they could go, yes, it's here.
Can I drag this
38
above
miles
the
an
level?
hour, I estimate.
Can I drag this above the level and they think this is all over or whatever it is?
Is it a tidal wave? A tsunami?
No, something goes even faster. What's the fastest thing you can think of?
Light.
Light is the right answer.
Is it?
Absolutely right.
Light usually, as you probably know...
186,000 miles a second.
Very good. I'll give you a few points for that. That's quite great.
Oh,
Light...
so wait a minute. Someone slowed it down, didn't they?
Yeah.
They
Do you remember how?
No, well, was
So
it...
they could get into bed
ice
before the
or
light
something?
went out.
They put it...
That's the only reason there is physics.
Top work. No, you're quite right.
They put a laser light through, I don't know, ice, glass, something like that, frosty.
Even closer, much colder than that, much
Fridge.
Colder. No, really cold. You're talking colder than
Igloo.
Frozen
so cold.
vodka.
So much colder than that.
Blackpool.
You're all doing well. No, astoundingly, light is, first, invisible. You can't see it, only what bumps into it or it bumps into. If you could see it, you wouldn't be able to see anything else. It's often said that the speed of light is constant, but it isn't, only in a vacuum when it is 186,000 miles a second. In any other medium, the speed of light varies considerably. As a matter of fact, through diamonds, for example, it goes less than half as fast, 80,000 miles per second.
Is that because it's going, woo?
Yeah, exactly.
This is the hardest thing.
But the slowest it's ever been recorded at is through sodium at minus 270 degrees, where it travels at 38 miles per hour. Where does Santa Claus come from? Yeah.
From St. Nicholas. St. Nicholas.
Yes, what place?
The Bohemia, Czechoslovakia. No?
Not quite. No. God. Any thoughts?
Russia.
No.
He's an Aborigine.
No.
Woking.
No.
Lapland.
Bavaria.
Did you say Lapland? Oh, dear, oh, dear, oh, dear, oh, dear, oh, dear, oh.
And I just saw North Pole.
Yes, so you're not going to say that, are you? No.
Syria. Turkey.
Yes! Quite
Bingo.
right. Turkey, yes. And that was real Santa Claus, St. Nicholas.
Happy Christmas!
Yeah, but he was...
Tzatziki, vine leaves.
Sinterklaas, as they call him in the Netherlands. Yeah, Sinterklaas is aangekomt, is their little song. I'll give you some points if you can tell me where precisely our modern view, as it is, of Father Christmas comes from.
Does it derive from the Gemütlichkeit culture of that Prince Albert brought to Britain in the 1840s?
Again, you're just chiming with the thought that fills the room, but no.
Yes.
No. It's... the Schleswig-Holstein Gemütlichkeit culture is not an issue here. It is a very extraordinary thing. I want to take you to the year 1822.
Oh, when Schubert wrote the Unfinished Symphony.
Something else happened. A poem was written, which absolutely gave us, for the first time ever printed or ever recorded, as far as we know, the idea of the white beard, the red coat, the stockings, the chimney, the presents on Christmas Eve, the whole thing. Americans still quote it every Christmas time.
It was the night before Christmas.
It was the night before Christmas. Clement Clark Moore, who was professor of Hebrew. And the poem was called A Visit from St. Nicholas.
Off his face on Laudanum, just sitting there. A big fat man with a beard and a red coat. This is fantastic. And he's got a sack full of gripples. No.
From apples to something as American as apple pie, dodgy presidents. Richard E. Grant, this is for you. What ghastly blot on his reputation did your namesake Ulysses S. Grant share with John Prescott?
They both had a condition called erectus permanentus. Which is, no, it's serious. It is absolutely true. From, the age of 5, it's been at full woody mast the whole way through. Which is why John had to get into that Jaguar and travel that 1 mile distance, because Ulysses did the same thing in a carriage trip from a very small 18th century mile to Washington.
You've mentioned John Prescott's Jaguar.
Right.
And you've mentioned Ulysses S. Grant in a wooden cart.
Right.
Stick with that thought. Try and expunge woody masts from your mind for the moment and run with the idea of vehicles.
Parking offence.
Speeding. Two-jagged Prescott
Right.
was banned from driving for 21 days in 2001 after he admitted going more than 100 miles an hour on the M1 and was fined £200. In the 3 previous years, he earned 9 points on his licence for speeding. The best reason he could come up with was that he didn't want his constituents to catch cold waiting for him. Now, 3 Buggy Grant received a speeding ticket while driving his horse and buggy in Washington, D.C. in 1869. He had to persuade the officer in charge that he was guilty, and he was fined £20.
God, was that a speed camera? Like a bloke, with a big black hood over him? And going, no, hold it, no, wait a minute. What's a minute, I'll have this.
No, it was a sketch artist.
There's something very odd also that they both had in common. They both won rather extraordinary prizes. Ulysses S. Grant, as a boy, won a prize for taming a pony in a circus. But the prize that Prescott won
Very odd. 1951 in Brighton. The Prescott family won second prize.
Nobody needs?
The most typical family in Britain competition. Absolutely.
But second.
Yeah, but second. But it should have been first because the winning family was found out to be distantly related to the organiser of the competition. So there was corruption, but not on the part of John Prescott. But there you are. Who invented the aeroplane?
It's Orville and Wilbur Wright.
Oh, I'm sorry to say, I'm very sorry to say that is the wrong answer.
Is it the Wrong Brothers?
It's not the Wrong Brothers. Very good, Peter. Thank you very much. No, John Stringfellow of Chard in Somerset successfully flew the first engine-powered aeroplane in 1848. It was a model aeroplane, but it was an aeroplane. It went quite a long way. The Wright brothers, from your lovely country of the United States of so on, they flew for less than 12 seconds a journey that actually would have covered less than half the wingspan of a Boeing jumbo jet, Orville and Wilbur.
But what about the hot air balloon?
Hot air balloon that I think is usually ceded to the Montgolfier brothers, isn't it?
I would think that would have been before the plane.
It was. It was in the 18th century.
But didn't the Chinese invent the hot air balloon in like
Stop harping on about the Wrong Brothers.
The Chinese invented a lot of things. We may indeed come to some of the Chinese inventions later on in the programme. Darts.
Football.
And, of course, China. It sounds odd, but it's true.
What struck me about your statement was that he was from a place called Chard. Yeah.
Chard.
That sounds like the kind of town you'd want to get away from.
Yes.
Chard.
Yes, he did run away and he moved to the village of Badly Burned in Dorset. Who invented, ladies and gentlemen, the telephone?
I'm not going to say it.
No.
I'm not going to say it.
No thoughts? No thoughts?
Aristarchus.
You're quite right. You're quite right. It's suspicious because the answer is certainly not Alexander Graham Bell.
Who's the first person to do 2 baked bean cans and a bit of string? Who did
Not recorded, as far as I know.
Valerie Singleton invented the phone.
Valerie Singleton.
I know that Louis Daguerre, who invented the photography, typical bloke, see, he invented photography and a couple of days later persuaded a local barmaid to take her top off. Then you take a picture. That's blokes for you, isn't it, really? Yeah, like, I've invented photography, this wonderful...
Well, it was ever thus.
Who invented the telephone, though?
Do you want to know? All right, I'll tell you. Antonio Meucci, Italian-born scientist. He invented the telephone. He'd perfected it by 1871. Couldn't afford the patent. But do you know what happened? It was being assessed for a patent in the offices of Western Union. It fell into the hands of a young Scottish engineer called Alexander Graham Bell.
Making that.
Boo! He grabbed the chance and patented it in his own name. Meucci took him to court, but died before the judgment was given, leaving Bell to claim his place in history. What do we say to Alexander Graham Bell? Boo! Isn't that wicked? Isn't it as wicked as you get? Isn't that... It's wicked.
That's what we'd have said in Look at him. I don't even like the look at him. Look at him. He doesn't even know how to use it. He doesn't even know how to use it. You think you're going to slay this? Back in the old...
No, let's have respect for this. This poor man... This poor man deserves respect. A quite interesting thing that Alexander Graham Bell said. He said when he was asked what the future of the telephone was, he said, "I truly believe that one day there will be a telephone in every town in America." Which hand did King Henry VIII of England wipe his bottom with?
Anne Boleyn's.
Lovely image. Yes, Joe.
Can I suggest, in the hope that I get a wah, that he used someone else's, the servant? He didn't.
No, you get your full. I'll give you 5 points for that because it's absolutely right.
I bet that it's one of those jobs that's so unpleasant and awful, it's actually given really high status in the royal household.
You are absolutely right.
You make it bearable, you get all kinds of downstairs
Aristocrats would
privileges.
fight over this job.
Were you the keeper of the king's chocolate starfish?
Well, no, you're called the groom of the stool. Palace assistant, despite its disgusting-sounding nature, it was a hugely important position, as Anna has intimated, and gets 2 points for doing so. The autocue says it was a big job, but I'm not going to read that. Incidentally, there is, ladies and gentlemen, the
groom of the stool.
The groom of the stool, Sir Anthony Denny, who was the longest-running groom of the stool.
Do you think he bent over and put his bottom out? Or did he roll on his back and put his knees right...
Do you know, I'd rather not think about it.
Did they have a kind of royal changing mat for the king to lie down on?
I'm sure they had the...
You get a bucket of water and go...
Well, it was a much-prized job because the amount of access, the amount of time one got to spend with the king. Another sought-after and rather cushier task in the king's chamber was warming his shirt. Here's a question for you. What makes a festive balloon like this go up?
Helium.
That's the right answer, 2 points. And what does it do to your voice?
Makes it go higher pitched if you inhale it.
Oh. It doesn't make your voice go up. No, it doesn't go up in pitch at all. It's the timbre that changes.
The timbre?
The timbre.
That's a stamp,
isn't it? It's... We wanted to give you all some helium to show it by having you sing. But I've got the 3 worst words in the English language to offer you. And safety. It's 4 words. It's 4 words. But I'm afraid health and safety wouldn't let us do it on television.
What did they think could possibly happen? Float away?
No, it's exactly. It's not a poisonous gas, for heaven's sake. You dive, don't you?
Yes. You breathe compressed air for scuba diving.
Yeah, but it's oxygen and helium. For deep-sea diving, that is.
So why didn't Jacques Cousteau, when he was always on the World About, go, "We have been underneath the sea..." What's his real voice? Was he like Paul Robeson? We have been minutious.
There is a gas you can breathe called xenon, which is, I think, one of the inert gases, where you do actually go John Wayne-like when you...
Freon is like that also.
Freon does that, does it? Yeah.
Refrigerator. Yeah, you can suck the back out of a refrigerator and your voice will be much lower. We did it all the time as kids.
Did you now?
Is this what, maybe if you're on EastEnders, every character has to have this before they start doing a bit? Oh, like that! And then they go, we've got a talk.
And that's what all the optics are behind the bar.
Yes, the fact is sound travels faster in helium, which increases the frequency but not the pitch. And it brings me on to a question for you. What is the difference between a cake and a biscuit?
Oh, that's easy.
Tell.
Well, a cake is soft and a biscuit's hard. Cakes are soft and squidgy and spongy, and biscuits, you can snap them.
What's a Jaffa cake, then?
Very interesting, you should say that.
Well, quite interesting.
No, well, quite interesting, exactly. Exactly. Let's stick to our brief. It's...
Jaffa cake is the exception that proves the rule.
Well, no, it isn't an exception.
See, what happens on this show, Dara, is he thinks I'm an idiot.
Yeah, but you think my name is an anagram of diarrhea. I'm really on their side at the moment.
Well, actually, I mean, you used the right words. Technically, the difference is that when they go stale, a cake goes hard and a biscuit goes soft. In 1991, the British government, Customs and Excise, decided they wanted to reclassify the Jaffa cake as a biscuit. The weird thing is, there is 0 VAT on cake and biscuit, but there is VAT on chocolate biscuits as a luxury item. So McVitie's went out of their way to try and prove that Jaffa cakes are not chocolate biscuits, they are cakes. And they did so by demonstrating in front of the VAT review board that they went hard when they were stale. And they also cooked a great big 12-inch one to show that it really was a cake that they'd baked.
I always think King Alfred, you know, he was a great man. Who,
is that a cock ring?
That's a really early cock ring.
It's made of stone.
Oh, they had big knobs then. And, King Alfred, who I believe was invented... I'm determined to carry on.
Yes, no, please do. Absolutely.
He invented the navy. He made all sorts of differences. He was an important political figure, but all we remember him for is some business involving cakes.
Yeah.
You, for example, may yet, Stephen, be remembered for something pathetically insignificant.
Absolutely. I once dropped a pack of Abbey Crunch.
So posh.
They're not
really
posh.
They are posh biscuits.
Posh biscuits are ones that are cooked for you by your pastry chef. Actually, there's a true story about the Duke of... I think it was the Duke of Devonshire, but it may not have been. In the Second World War, they would have people from the Ministry of Labour going around checking on everybody, and particularly on the big estates, to see if all these people, someone could be released for essential war work. And they went to Chatsworth, where the Duke of Devonshire's estate was. And they, you know, stopwatch and clipboard, and they checked everybody. And eventually they had an interview with the Duke. And they said, well, Your Grace, we can understand that you need 47 gardeners and 13 under-gardeners, and you need grooms, and you need chauffeurs, and you need upstairs maids and downstairs maids and in-between maids and laundry room maids and still room maids and kitchen maids and nursemaids and housemaids and parlour maids. And we can understand that you need the boy to scrape the knives and boots, and you need the butler and the four-footman and the under-butler. But we wonder if a man economy might be made. Does Your Grace necessarily need 2 pastry cooks? To which he apparently replied, oh, damn it, can't a man have a biscuit? Which is, I mean, you know, we're all prepared to make sacrifices and beat the Hun, but I mean, really? Thanks on the buzzers for another round of general ignorance.
No, I don't want to do general ignorance.
Why not?
Because I always get them wrong, and I will not be humiliated at Christmas.
Well, you don't know anything, that's the problem.
Well, it's you have all the answers, so why... There's no point telling me I don't know anything.
Well, do you think it's easy for me, do you?
Yes, I think it's quite easy for you.
All right. Why don't you sit here, and I'll sit there. Go on.
I was only having a joke.
Yeah, well, it's Christmas. It's traditional at Christmas time for servants to be served by the master. So everything swaps round. Go on, so on. Oh, it's easy now. You see, you just lounge back and talk to Phil.
OK, Stephen.
Oh, yes. Oh, hello.
I've been waiting for this opportunity.
Oh, Christ.
A question just for Stephen.
Yes.
Who plays in goal for Aston Villa?
Well, I do know you've got a Swede called Thomas Sorensen who plays in goal, but has he been taken over by Stefan...
Postma? Postma, yes.
Postma, yeah. Which is your number one?
Thomas Sorensen's the number one.
Sorensen.
It's actually Danish, but I'll give you that.
Yes, you played against England.
Yes. This isn't going to work. OK.
I just haven't to that.
Another question for Stephen.
Oh, no.
You probably all know this one. But, what was Mozart's middle name?
This is going to be a trick question, isn't it?
I don't know. You're the smarty pants.
Oh, bollocks.
Have to hurry you.
Well, it's, you want me to say Amadeus, so I'll say Amadeus.
Wolfgang. His full name was Johann Chrysostomus Wolfgangus Theophilus Mozart. He usually called himself Wolfgang Amad, not Amadeus, or Wolfgang Gottlieb. This question for Stephen Fry. How many states of matter are there?
Oh, hello. Well, if you count plasma, I suppose 4. Liquid, solid, gas,
4 is wrong. 6. I'm surprised at you, Stephen.
Oh. Print it down, is it?
They are, of course, solid, liquid, gas, plasma, Bose-Einstein condensate, and fermionic condensate, sometimes known as filament.
Just done.
This question is for Stephen Fry.
Alan Davies hunched in front of his pub trivia machine. That's a good one. I'll have that.
Which way does the bathwater go down the plug hole in the northern hemisphere?
What's quite interesting about digestive biscuits?
Well, it's a hard-working biscuit, the digestive. You know, you put cheese on it. There goes chocolate on it. It's a base for cheesecake. It really is a sort of Renaissance biscuit. It's a great dunker. It's a very, very hard-working biscuit. But have you ever noticed that there is a slightly fishy taste about a digestive?
What have you been dunking them in?
Well, who have you been dunking them in?
Lord. We're in the world of misnomers, but things that are wrongly called.
Do they give you wind?
They were called digestive because they were supposed to be an anti-flatulent biscuit when they were designed in the 19th century. No, that's right. In America, it's...
You better have one of these.
Maybe you stuffed it up, I don't know. But
I'd like to see an advert for this flatulence biscuit.
Hey, try it digestive. We're heading right back down the diarrhea highway again.
Welcome to the United Kingdom, Mr. The fact is, they are not aids to digestion. In America, it is illegal to call them digestives.
Of course, in America, do you know what we're talking about? Cookies.
Yeah.
Yes. Right, which is from the Dutch. Koekje, meaning a cake. Which is why you call them cookies. Because what you call a biscuit is more like what we would call, I don't know, a kind of scone thing. You have biscuits and gravy. Explain to the ladies and gentlemen what that is.
Oh, traveller from an arcane land.
What do your people eat?
Everything.
Well,
biscuits is made from self-rising flour, and then they just slop gravy over it, and it just takes up room on the plate.
Right. And it's a breakfasty thing or a lunchy thing? Or?
It depends on what trailer park you live in. Sometimes it's 3 meals a day.
Fair enough. Well, 450 digestive biscuits are baked every second in the United Kingdom.
Really?
Yeah.
They are truly the mule of biscuits.
Now, look at this picture. What does a rainbow look like from the other side?
You can't see it.
Slightly different.
Yeah.
Just slightly different. It's nice. But it's not
the same.
It's a bit...
Sort of look at it, you go...
You'd rather be on the proper side, but it's all right. I wouldn't bother going round to look at it. No. I just go, no, it's better this side.
It's a long journey.
You can't really concentrate on it because there are people going, come around, look at it from this side.
But your first answer was correct, for which you will get some points.
You can only see it from
the side that you're on.
Otherwise, you wouldn't know it's there.
No, there is a very particular way you can
It's
only
to do with
see
where
one.
the rain is and where you are.
Or where the sun is.
Where the sun is and the rain and where you are.
There has to be sun, and the sun has to be behind you.
Yeah.
Because they're light coming from behind your head, they're going through a raindrop, they're bouncing off the back of a raindrop, and coming back to your eye. And it can only happen at an angle of 42 degrees, which is why it's in a bow.
Can you tell me at what point in time human beings were actually able to sing a rainbow?
Is there a song about singing
a rainbow? Sing a rainbow.
There's loads of different ones, wasn't there? Grey and grey and grey and grey, grey and grey and grey. I can sing a woodlouse, you know.
Very good, very good. In Estonia, they believe that if you point at a rainbow, your finger will fall off.
Oh, for God's sake.
I know.
Estonians aren't stupid people, are they?
They aren't.
They're very stumpy, though.
Yeah.
Indigo, incidentally. What do you know about indigo?
Blue, isn't it?
Purple. It's purple.
It's a funny colour. Do you remember...
It's
was
the
it
colour of...
Silence.
No.
Can you sing that song incidentally?
No, I can't.
It's the colour of audacity. See, I'm doing it now. I'm talking like that. It's the colour of audacity.
It's a sort of darky blue, isn't it?
No, isn't it a fertility thing?
Well, it's an Indian plant that was used for dyeing.
In what sense would it be a fertility thing?
It's a colour, doesn't it? Doesn't it come up on women's legs in circles when they're ready?
That may be impetigo.
Like bands.
Are we thinking of impetigo?
It comes up on
Garters, what you're thinking.
Well, indigo is indigo. It's a dark blue dye used for such things as jeans and police uniforms. Why do bees buzz? Go.
Because they can.
And they'll buzz so that when they're trapped in the living room, you know to open the window.
It's a thought.
Is it to sound industrious?
Yeah.
You have to look at bees as aerospace workers. And stay with me.
Yeah, it's all right. I'm still there.
When you're flying, you want to make a lot of noise because a quiet aircraft is crashing.
Well, I think it's their knees knocking that makes the buzzing, isn't it? Because they hate flying. Terrified of flying.
What is it that makes the noise?
The wings.
No. No, it isn't, I'm afraid.
Not the wings, then?
No, it won't be the wings.
Testicles?
They're little tiny mouths.
Well, it is sort of little mouths. It's through what they breathe. They're called spiracles. They have them down their sides, through which they breathe. All buzzing insects, blue bottle's the same. It's not the wings. Less than 1% of the buzz comes from their wings. Bees breathe through 14 holes along the sides of their bodies, and they're called spiracles. And each one has a valve to limit the flow of air, which the bee can do. And they can tune it, rather like a trumpeter, sort of using his lips. What's that called? Embouchure, or whatever it is. Embouchure. And in the same way that one human lung on a trumpet can fill a vast hall with a great sound, more than it can with its own vocal cords. So a bee can make this extraordinary noise just through controlling its breathing.
Isn't science marvellous?
Are humans the only species that make unnecessary noise?
Oh, well, that's an interesting idea.
No, dogs.
I mean, do you think any animals just sit around and hum or just
whistle?
Or talk inanely, Alan?
That's why there are no panel shows in the animal kingdom.
It comes from...
How long would it take you to drive to outer space?
Outer space?
Yes, outer space. What is officially outer space?
That's 23 minutes.
I can believe that, actually.
Is outer space outer as in from Earth, or is it from the sun?
No, from...
It's just from us, and it's just above where I am. If you're tall, I'm nearly at the edge. And it's 600 miles.
It's actually...
to the top of the ionosphere. And that's widely considered to be the start of space. But whether that's considered to be outer space, I don't know. Are you counting that as outer space?
No, outer space begins, according to the Fédération Internationale d'Espace or something.
Who are French.
Yes. It's actually only 62 miles to outer space.
No, it isn't.
Straight up.
No, it isn't.
Oh, OK.
Wouldn't it depend on the traffic?
62 miles is what you're saying is outer space. Did you know there was a man called Joe Kittinger who once jumped out of a hot air balloon at that height? 1961?
Oh, dead Joe Kittinger.
No, he's not.
Just flag up one small thing.
Go on.
There isn't actually any sort of road system.
No.
Well, I've often wondered, why could you not, if it's only 62 miles to what people call space, why can't you just build a ladder? I mean, it can't be beyond the wit of man to build a ladder that just goes straight, and then you could walk up it, save a lot of bother.
Yes. Oxygen pack necessary, but...
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, you've got an oxygen pack, maybe a lift.
Oh, a lift would be good.
Once you get up there, there's nothing really there, is there?
Not
it's
much.
a bit like Norfolk, isn't it?
No. You just be careful.
There's a rule with asking directions now, which men tend not to do, I think, as much as women, but if the person you ask says, drive on.
I've parked on their foot.
Or if they say, do you want the easy way to get there? I want to be tortured and left for dead on the side of the road. I was in Canada once, and I'm asking directions. I was trying to find this friend's farm, and I stopped this farmer, and he says, you go down the road about 3 miles, and then you'll see a big dead possum in the middle of the road. You go left there. How do you know the dead possum will be there? And he said, well, would you pick up a dead possum?
Good. I was getting directions once on the phone, and I was actually writing them down. And I realised after about a minute, I'd stopped listening and started drawing like a great big elephant. Big bollocks on it and everything. And I just realised, and someone said, we were actually driving along, so I said, where is it? I said, well, you go down the left. Ooh.
If you ask a lady for directions, she'll ask you a question back. So if you say, do you know where the post office is? She'll say, do you want to buy a stamp? And you're having a nice chat and everyone's friends.
Yeah.
But you have no idea where the post office is.
So there you are. If you could drive straight upwards, then it would take under an hour if you were going at about 60-odd miles an hour. Outer space is defined as anywhere outside a planet's atmosphere. According to the Fédération Aéronautique Internationale, this is 62 miles above the surface of the Earth. From the obvious, what's unusual about the New Guinea singing dog?
Did you say apart from the obvious?
Well, the obvious being that it's a singing dog, yes.
It's the only singing dog never to have been on Assorted.
It's a tiny little dog in a huge bath of potpourri. He sings so high that no one can hear.
Well, we do. You can actually hear him sing if you want to. I think we've got him singing.
Right. Go on, then. It's like Gracie Fields falling off a cliff, isn't it?
Well, a pretty little dog. It's a mixture, supposedly, between a fox and a dingo.
But it has no feet.
It actually never moves. It's stuck in the ground.
Now that's where you're wrong, young Davies.
It's the only dog that climbs trees.
Yes, is the right answer.
Well done.
Absolutely brilliant. Well done. Absolutely spot on. You know, like tigers, the New Guinea singing dog is also extremely rare in the wild and is best known from the 150 examples living in the US. There are more of those in the US than in its natural habitat. Again, dogs, like chickens, have an amazing... How many chromosomes have you got as a chicken, do you remember?
78.
78, well done. 78, God, you really are absolutely on fire, young David. No. Jimmy, how many burglaries are committed in the UK by koalas every day?
Every day?
Yeah.
Well, I'm guessing it's quite a low figure. Now, are we talking breaking and entering or planning to deprive of property on a continual basis because they're different charges?
The thing about koalas is they are the most law-abiding of all the bears.
Of course, they're not bears.
Order!
Yes, Alan.
They're not bears.
Thank you.
They've got a very long intestine. They sleep for 22 hours a day.
Yeah. I tell you what, though, all the indigenous mammals in Australasia are marsupials.
Are therefore not mammals.
Yeah.
Yes. Actually, it's fantastic.
Did you know that? They're cats. They're cats, all of them. I think they're big. Try to say something clever. Sorry, back to the knob gags.
Well, no, fair point. The things that are almost like furry, if you but aren't.
Well, if I said almost like furry, I would have sounded like Alan. There'd be no point to that. I was trying to be all clever.
Sorry, that koala, it looks like he's waiting for the fire brigade.
Look at his paws, though.
I was going to say, what's your favourite bit of the koala?
The paws are gorgeous.
Do you like the little hand?
I like the cock.
Oh, stop.
I told you.
Fluffy ears, or the little hard-nosy bit.
I want you, though, to concentrate on the paws.
I like the lips toasted.
Concentrate. Yes,
I've
Jimmy.
got it. Fingerprints, because koala fingerprints are indistinguishable from human fingerprints.
Fingerprints is right, Jimmy. Well, let's have a look. Let's see some human prints, some koala prints, and maybe some chimpanzee prints. Which is which, would you say?
Human print is on the left. No, it's not. It's in the middle.
So what's that? Human in the middle?
Yes.
Right, and chimpanzee and...
Oh, chimpanzee is on the right, and that one over there, that's a koala.
Oh, I wonder if you're right. No, it's a human on the left and a koala in the middle and a chimpanzee on the right. And even under a scanning electron microscope, it's incredibly hard to see any difference between a koala print and a human print. And the chimpanzee is very closely related.
That's extraordinary, because the koala evolved in isolation in Australasia.
It's called convergent evolution, where things that are evolving completely separately come up with similar solutions.
Or they were all made by God.
Or they were all made by God. So anyway, koalas have fingerprints are almost identical to human beings, and this was discovered by a Polish man called Henneberg, who is an anthropologist and paleopathologist, but also a dermatoglyphic expert. And the word dermatoglyphics means the study of fingerprints.
Yeah, of course it does.
And I'll give you 10 points if you can tell me what's unusual about this word. It shares a particular property with only one other word in the English language.
Does it have all the letters of the word dermatoglyphic?
Actually, the only other word that shares this property is the word uncopyrightable.
Is it the vowels in the right order?
No, they're the longest words in the English language, 15
Without
letters,
E in it?
with no repetition of a letter, which all the letters are different.
That's
Simple as
fantastic.
that. Each of the panel also has, I believe, a swazzle, a small device used by professors of Punch and Judy. And what do they say with it? Oh, very good.
Which way does it go?
Now, you've also each got a joker, and you will find it has a squirrel on it. So when you think the right answer to any question this evening is squirrel or anything to do with squirrels, you press your buzzer, you play the card, and you shout squirrels. All right?
Without swazzles, Stephen? Without swazzles?
Without swazzles. No, don't shout squirrel with a swazzle. You'll swallow it.
It's impossible.
No, that... If you want to do that, it will take time. You don't want this... If you don't take your swazzles out very soon, I will kill you. Thank you. Yes. Well, at least you haven't swallowed it. You have to swallow one at least twice in order to be called the professor of Punch and Judy.
Is that your qualification?
Apparently.
Do they have to be there when you defecate?
Yes, there it is. Congratulations, Professor.
Does it go?
Cat derives from the Latin catulus, Clive.
That's the angriest looking cat.
Yes. It's furious. I want you to tell me what the word catulus means.
Well, it means cat. It obviously means something else before that. Okay.
We took the cat from catulus and described cats with it. The Romans didn't call their cats catulus, but...
Dogs.
Yes, is the right answer. Catulus
clue was there in the picture.
It was there. See what you see now. See what you see. It was on the picture there.
Hang on, another one's appeared.
Little one.
What have you done to that cat, you filthy dog? The word rabbit's an interesting word, odd enough, because
because that comes from the Latin for giraffe.
Well, you all know cat, it comes from kata, meaning down in Greek, as in all kinds of words beginning with kata. So it was described for puppies first, because the little things that hit the ground were the catulus, and became a word for a puppy and then for a dog. And we took the cat bit and called cats with it. Do you know what cataglottism is?
You get a cat stuck in your throat.
Yeah. It's a very old word, a much older word than the word you might use for French kissing. It means to put your tongue down someone's throat. Literally, put your tongue down. Cata, down, glot, glottis, tongue.
Why is that cat so cross?
It is, isn't it?
Really, really
Something
cross.
is... It's stapled to that table.
It's been made to pose for that photo.
I said I'll do a picture with two other cats. I'm going to get onto my agent. I am not a dog. It's our second time this week. I'll do this one more and then I'm going.
It's a wonderful feeling, because the more you look into its eyes, the crosser it seems to get, doesn't it? Puss is actually from the ancient Egyptian, pasht, meaning cat, or moon, incidentally.
Why is pussy another word for front bottom?
I don't know, it's not my area of expertise.
We've covered before.
Now, this is the big one. 200 pointeroonies at stake. For those 200 points, what is that?
That's a cuttlefish.
Oh, I know what that is. That's a text message from someone who's very pissed.
It's a process, it's a happening, it's a, as it were, a chemical episode.
Is it some sort of an explosion?
That's brilliant. She's right.
Is there some sort of food stuff involved in it?
This is brilliant. My God.
Well, no.
Did you do this at school?
Yeah, I did domestic science at school. And I know an explosion when I see one, and I think, and I'm only going on a hunch here, I think it's an explosion in a custard? Sort of a custard explosion.
How would you know that? I have to give a 200... Yeah, there's an old phrase, an explosion in a custard factory. That is what happens when custard explodes. There was an explosion in Norwich, in fact, my old manor, on the 21st of July last year. It's the oxidisation of glucose is what happens, and it can be pretty nasty. What custard facts can I offer you? There was a food survey conducted in the year 2000, and it was discovered that 99% of all British people recognised the brand Bird's custard. Bird invented it, Sir Alfred Bird, an eggless custard powder, because his wife was allergic to eggs. It was a kindness to his wife. He also gave the world baking powder in order to keep our boys in the Crimea in good bread. Remarkable man. Yeah. What do the French call custard? Coutard. You guessed, but no. They don't really have a word for custard. They don't believe it exists. I mean, that's to say, they just don't recognise.
Take some over and pour it on them.
Well, I mean, what we call custard, they call crème anglaise. Yeah. But they don't recognise... But what we call confectioner's custard, they just call crème, and what they make...
You know what? I was in a restaurant today, and it said apple pie with crème anglaise.
Yes, that's custard.
And I thought...
Pathetic.
I'll have it anyway.
I think it's custard.
What would you say if you thought, I want custard on it? I'm afraid, sir, it does not exist. You have placed me into an existential quandary. I'm afraid I'll have to leave the restaurant. You, sir, you are bound.
Why would this is a restaurant in London? Why would they do that in London?
Ponciness.
What's wrong with them? They don't want custard on the menu, do they?
No, exactly. They think it's in for dig.
I bet they make proper real custard instead of nice custard out of a packet.
Bird's custard. I must say I prefer real things.
And do you know what I love about custard? Viscosity. I love viscosity. Because when you put the spoon through, you have exactly the amount of push with the spoon.
You use the same amount of energy as you would if you were pouring water onto your pie.
Well, except in France, where you just do that over an invisible bowl.
Did you know that if you have muesli, you can have it with water, it tastes the same as it does with milk?
Exactly.
Except less milky and you.
It's a lot better with Lambrusco, I have to say.
Yeah. Tonight, any flamencos you give in Pyong score Barney, and I'll also give you two sundaes. It's Cockney rhyming slang. Any flamencos?
Flamenco dances, answers
in
Pyongyang
slang.
Score Barney. Rubble. Double.
Yes.
I'll give you two Sunday roasts, posts.
Sunday joints, points. If at any nickel and dime time, you woman who does buzz.
Yeah.
Woman who does. That's all I can think of.
Oh, so we're doing middle-class Cockney rhyming slang.
A woman who does.
A woman who does.
Woman who does.
Want to lubricant me.
Yeah. Lubricant gel, tell.
Lubricant gel.
You can tell me what I'm on about. It's a whole new genre of argot.
Yeah. A Labrador groomer.
What do you think your pantomimes would translate as?
Pantomime dames' names?
Yes.
Phil Jupiter's is Cockney rhyming slang for hypochondriac. Ill, dubious.
Ill dubious, very good. That's good. I like it. Rory.
Well, there are two official Rory McGraths, apparently. There's having a laugh, Rory McGrath. He's having a Rory. I'll have a Rory. That's a half.
And Bill.
Well, I imagine the only thing I think probably might be scaly. You know, your skin's gone a bit Bill Bailey, scaly, you know. You've got a bit of an Arthur Ashe on your Roberta. You know, it's gone a bit Bill Bailey.
What does Alan Davies give us, I wonder?
Doesn't really rhyme with anything apart from Mavis. Unless you know someone called Mavis.
Yeah,
it's Alan Davies.
Mavis is the old word for a thrush.
Yeah, it's a
so
thrush.
you could say, I've caught a bill of Alan.
Yeah, that's true.
It's gone a bit Bill Bailey.
Yeah.
What's the commonest metal in the human body?
Ooh, that's a very good question.
Iron.
Iron? Oh, dear, no.
I think it's mercury.
Oh, dear, oh, dear, oh, dear, oh, dear, oh, dear.
I think it must be calcium.
Oh, no, he's got it. He's got it. It's calcium. Absolutely right. £100. Right.
Because the bones are mainly calcium phosphate crystals, aren't they?
Yes.
Yeah.
Wood.
Calcium, atomic number 20. Last year, I learned all the atomic numbers of all the elements.
Good Lord.
Because I was helping my son to revise. And I've actually tried to forget them as much as I can since then, because it's just been so embarrassing
Selenium?
to know them all. Selenium, 30 something.
I have no idea. I know it's close to arsenic because I saw
It's
it
34.
in the film Evolution.
It's 34. Selenium is 34, arsenic's 33.
Very good. Isn't it good?
But calcium,
we should really put railings round you and have children come and stare
calcium,
at
I
you.
presume, because calcium phosphate is the main constituent of bones.
Indeed, calcium is as a metal, is almost never found in nature.
Phosphorus is, of course, I think, 15.
Yeah, let's move aside from the slightly more...
You're doing atomic number wheelies now. Wow! You pull up outside pubs and go, selenium, 32.
Calcium comes from the Latin calx, isn't it? Meaning a stone or a pebble, from which we get calculus and calculation and recalcitrant and all kinds of words. There you are. It was discovered in 1808 by Sir Humphrey Davy.
I think recalcitrant actually comes from calx meaning a heel, not calx meaning it's kicking back.
You're right. You should have points to that. It is indeed from a heel. You're quite right.
Now, this is a team game, isn't it? I'm on his team.
And what's another name for the common cormorant? Yes, Rory.
Sea crow.
Oh, very good. It is. That's the right answer.
The Latin name is Phylacrocorax.
What were you going to say?
Can I just give the Latin name?
Yeah.
The cormorant is the Phylacrocorax carbo. The shag is Phylacrocorax aristotelis. It doesn't have the white face and the...
This is brilliant. I mean, this is everything I've got written down.
You get called tosser, Matt.
Only...
Oh, no. Poor Rory.
It's a fair question. I only get called tosser by other people. The reason sea crow is the actual word cormorant comes from Corvus marinus, which is the Latin for sea crow.
Old swatty.
Yeah. Phylacrocorax graculus would be... It's the crested cormorant, isn't it? Yes, because the graculus is a jackdaw.
No, a jackdaw is Corvus monedula.
Yes, and it's another word. It's the actual Latin name. The actual Latin name for a jackdaw was graculus.
OK, Stephen, let's not fall out over this, Stephen.
No, it's what... No, I'm saying real Latin. No, you might be interested. Roman people actually call birds things before they want. Oh, dear, oh, dear, oh, dear.
Sorry about that. I'm so sorry.
That's all right.
Come on, Sean. There's a portal into the underworld here. It's ridiculous.
Anyway, I'm impressed with Rory, and I think everyone else is too. No, it's just...
I've got a feeling, Rory, that you have pulled.
You all know what to do with a custard pie, but Alan, what's a custard pile?
It's sort of yellow hemorrhoid.
Shot in the dark, buildings in a geologically unsafe, some sort of liquid foundation.
That's a wonderful thought. Absolutely nothing like the answer, but a very nice squirrel.
Is it squirrel?
No, it's not squirrel. It is an animal, on the other hand.
Custard pile.
recognised colour from a breeders' association of a particular... Not a cat.
A dog.
Not even a mammal.
A ferret.
Not a mammal.
A goldfish.
No, not a fish neither.
Lizard, some sort of lizard.
Not a lizard.
I think we're running out of major animal groups.
It's a bird.
Canary.
Not a canary.
Parrot.
A fighting bird.
A cock.
It's a cock. It's a fighting cock, a game cock.
What have you got? I've got killer lungeons, and I've got custard pile.
You can have cocks in muff. You can have... You can have tassel, spangle, carp legs, milk and water legs. Do you know anything about cocking at all?
Well, I don't like to blow my own trumpet, but...
For 2,000 years was Britain's national sport, cockfighting. Every village would have at least one cockpit. Can you think of any phrases that come from cockfighting we use today? Cockpit is one. Yep. Well done. Show a clean pair of heels, well-heeled. To pit someone against. You describe someone as game, as in being up for it. That's from cockfighting. Yeah. It says here, a good cocker would think nothing of cleaning his cock's wounded head by sticking it in his mouth and sucking it clean.
Yeah.
Yes. You're watching QI for the straight guy.
Yeah. His first Prime Minister, team, panel, friends.
Wasn't it Walpole?
Walpole? Oh, no. Shame on you. No, it wasn't.
Lord Snooty.
Pitt.
Oh! Oh, but you meant the younger. Yes, you meant the younger.
The Elder was a tree, wasn't he?
Was it some sort of king that proclaimed himself the Prime Minister before he handed over power?
No, he was a politician. It was in the last century.
Cromwell?
Oh, it was 100 years ago, almost exactly, that he became Prime
Israeli.
Minister. 100 years ago. Oh, well, never mind. No. 100 years ago would be 1905, wouldn't it?
This show favours people who know stuff.
No, it's so unfair.
Someone like Roosevelt MacDonald?
No, he was a bit later. 1905 to 1908.
Campbell Bannerman.
Henry Campbell Bannerman. Well done, thank you, absolutely. Henry Campbell Bannerman. He's not perhaps the best known of our Prime Ministers, but he ought to.
He was one of triplets as well.
He was actually a very good Prime Minister. He introduced old age pensions, he fought for the poor.
He was the first Prime Minister. What were they called?
They were called First Lord of the Treasury before that. He was the first one to be called Prime Minister.
First Lord of the Treasury?
Yeah, they're still First Lords of the Treasury if they're Prime Minister, but they're Prime Minister and First Lord of the Treasury. Now, before they were simply... They used the word Prime Minister sometimes as an insult, but they were never called Prime Minister until 1905.
What was Ethelred the Unready?
He was a king. Yes. His last words, Henry Campbell Bannerman, were, "This is not the end of me." The term Prime Minister was first officially used in 1905, just 5 days after Campbell Bannerman became one. And Sir Robert Walpole generally recognised... There were 7 Roman emperors who bore the name Caesar, not counting Julius, who started the whole thing, but of course wasn't himself an emperor. We all know what he did. He came, he saw, he conquered. But what did Nero do? Oh, did you say that? Oh, Joe, he didn't fiddle while Rome burned, no.
He had a concrete swimming hat.
He was very, very... He did, rather. Very productive, wasn't he, Nero? He built most of Rome, not the Rome you see.
Well, he rebuilt it after it was burned down, indeed.
Did he have an enormous gold statue of himself built? Incredibly vain and stupid.
Vain is the word. His dying words were, "What an artist dies in me." And he played...
Was there someone in him?
And of course... Small Fauviste painter has just perished inside my being. Well, anyway, no, of course, the fiddle didn't exist in Roman days. The fiddle was invented, in the 15th century, I think, something like that. So he would have played Kithara or something, a sort of lyre-like thing.
But was he doing it like a sort of fire engine alarm, like...
Well, there's some evidence he did try and put the fire out, actually. He blamed a small sect of people for the fire. It was a very useful scapegoat.
The gays?
No. Even smaller, slightly less well-dressed, and oddly enough, to this day, enemies of the gays.
It wasn't the Chavies.
No, even worse than the... It was
Coptics?
Those damned Christians, yes. Nero, played by Christopher Biggins, of course, in TV's popular I Clavdivs.
I captives.
Some people think he may have even been playing bagpipes when he was watching...
Christopher Biggins? No, he is actually that size. Bagpipes, I'm sorry.
Yes.
No, can't be having it.
They have this tuning, and it's on. Scots do that when they talk. I'm not sure. Very odd, though. So anyway, there we are. There's old Nero, whatever he was. He was eventually booed off, of course, and succeeded by a more popular entertainer who was called Galbus, Servius Galbus Caesar Augustus, to be precise. And he got rid of bagpipe performances and he replaced them with tightrope walking elephants. What are the contents of the Queen's handbag?
I don't think I've ever seen the Queen get anything out of her handbag. And she's certainly never done that thing that women do, you know, where they go, it's in here somewhere, I know. So my suspicion is that she probably has nothing in her handbag. I think it's probably a kind of social defence. And it means she doesn't have to hold Prince Philip's hand, look.
The Little Book of Calm. And mace spray. Because there's a lot of people around her who get too close. There's men in big hats. It's like, you know, back off!
Apparently the Queen does carry money, but a lot of people think she doesn't, but apparently she, for Sundays, she always has money, an unspecified denomination, folded in her handbag there. And also she has a comb, apparently, a handkerchief, a small gold compact, and a tube of lipstick. Maybe she gets upset if she carries a fiver, saying, God, I used to be so pretty.
She's got a deep-fried curly-whirly in there. She's got to have some pleasure.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
She sits in the loo and she just eats
Oh, yes, like that.
Quietly. She crams it all in when no one's looking. I'm all right.
What's the connection between Nancy Kerrigan and Way Corrigan? Yay.
She was the skater who had her legs smashed by Tonya Harding.
Absolutely right.
And he was another skater who had his legs smashed by another skater.
That's not right, but the link is, what was Tonya Harding doing? I mean, essentially in a very violent and appalling way.
She was trying to eliminate her rival from the competition.
She was cheating.
Way Corrigan was a shamed porn star. In the 70s.
He looks like Edward Fox there, doesn't he?
Yeah. He's a jockey, isn't he? No, he was a famous cheat. He had a ticker tape parade in Manhattan where more than 1 million people turned up in the streets. He was inspired by a man called Lindbergh. He was determined to fly across the Atlantic, although Lindbergh had already done it. They told him he wasn't allowed to because his aeroplane wasn't up to snuff. It was a mess. It was an old crate. So what he said happened was he flew from New York to California, but he ended up in Dublin Airport. And he flew across the Atlantic, but claimed that he'd just gone the wrong way by mistake. And to his dying day, he claimed that it was just an error in that, you know, he'd lost one of his compasses. But he was known as Way Corrigan.
Did he ever look out of the window? Because, hey...
He couldn't see. It was night, it was foggy, he says.
It can't have been night for 3,000 miles.
Exactly. He does look like Eddie Fox in The Day and the Jackal. But he said, it's going to cost you a lot of money.
Doesn't it?
Eddie Fox, the only man with a bicep in his face. Wallace, I'm going to have to abdicate.
I was in a play in Chichester years ago, 20-odd years ago. The first play I was ever in. And he was in another play, but I got to know the DSM, as they're called, the Deputy Stage Manager, very well. And she'd not met him, and he suddenly appeared and put a hand on either shoulder and leant into her ear and said, if we do go to bed together, it'll be strictly on my terms. Hell of a pick-up line, isn't it?
Ed was one of these guys who says that he just upstairs into space and suddenly says something. And he was sitting in a dressing room, possibly at Chichester again, actually, and he said, I'm so glad there are no homosexuals in this company. Robbins just looks at him. The other lot in the Antony and Cleopatra play are an absolute fleet of Berties.
Which who was the first president of America?
Washington.
Another two.
No. Surprisingly not. No, he was probably the 15th.
See?
He was the first president of an independent United States of America, but there had been many presidents of the United States in Congress assembled, presidents of the Continental Congress of America. And the first one was called Randolph, Peyton Randolph. The second one was called John Hancock.
Oh, Hancock,
And
yeah.
what does John Hancock mean? Fingers on buzzers quickly, if you're an American. Oh, you got there, David.
It means signature.
Yes. I was just very alarmed when I first went to America and was told to put... I just only put your John Hancock on the... My what? Where? Just put your John Hancock down. Whoa. But that's what it means. They use it all the time.
Well, it's the reason being is that on the Declaration of Independence they all signed it, and everyone went sort of, and that's me. Hancock came along. John
Hancock.
Hancock.
It is.
You can actually see it from space.
Yeah. But you're right. His is the big signature on the Declaration of Independence. So there you are. There were 13 others after Peyton, and then on 30th of April, 1789, George Washington was sworn in as the first president of the independent. I'm holding a pen. That brings me cleverly to the Fisher pressurised space pen, of which you may have heard tell. It was developed after a lot of expensive research to enable astronauts to write in zero gravity. What alternative writing implement could they have used instead?
Here comes the big noise. A pencil.
Yeah. There is a kind of urban myth that the Americans spent millions on building a pressurised, gravity-free biro while the clever Russians just used a pencil. But in fact, they started off, both of them, using pencils, and the tip broke. And when the tip breaks, it floats around and it gets into short circuits, things gets into people's eyes and bodies. It's very dangerous indeed.
Oh, but what a laugh that must be to have a pencil sharpener on the space shuttle.
So it's sadly not true, that story. An ordinary biro would have worked. It didn't need a special pressurised one. You need to write upside down, it needs to be pressurised. When there's gravity, but when there's no gravity, an ordinary one will work. Now, the year is 1792. It was a notable year for a number of reasons. It was the year the guillotine was first used.
Which was last used in 1960. Point for that.
No, because it's not true. It's wrong.
It is true.
No, it isn't. We'll come to that, I'm afraid. 1977. The last French... Sorry. No, it was a one-legged French criminal who was guillotined in 1977. 1792 was the year the guillotine was first used and the year of birth of the inventor of the computer and the death of the man after whom the sandwich is named. What was invented...
Lord Sandwich.
Yes. Guess. Well, it wasn't going to be Nora Butty, was it?
Charles Babbage.
Charles Babbage, you're right, is the inventor of the computer, so you've all added to that.
Difference engine.
But, yes, the difference engine.
I know how many people were at his funeral.
Oh, go on.
3.
Really?
Yeah, only 3 people went to his funeral. None of his friends turned up because he was a laughingstock by the time he died, and he'd invented the computer.
Yeah, I know.
Which was only recently,
they rebuilt one, didn't they?
Science Museum and turned it, and it works.
In Vietnam, the guillotine was last used in 1960.
However, in France, in 1977... But
En France.
En France, exactly, en France.
Has anyone survived it?
Well, do you remember Jim Dale in the film...
Surviving, you can go.
That's smart. That's smart.
Sablon, anything.
Guillotine be gone.
Your head is flopping over.
Do you remember Jim Dale in the Carry On film, you know, Don't Lose Your Head? And he's just being guillotined. It's in the French Revolution, they say. There's a note for you from Robespierre. It says, leave it in the basket, I'll read it later on.
Well, there's a horrible truth to that, because, of course, it was maintained by contemporary witnesses that a lot of the heads were quite sentient for some time after decapitation.
Now, coal, as everyone knows, is made from ancient forests. Have any of you used coal to brush your Bexleys?
Never.
Hello.
Oh, hello. Are you doing Bexley Heath?
Yes, that was teeth, yes. I know it's Hampstead's usually, but...
Stephen, oh, Stephen, my love, Stephen, the toothpaste is so twinkly and sparkling white. How can it have coal in it?
It doesn't. It's the brush. What are the bristles made of?
Coal.
Well, they are. They're made of something which is a mixture of coal and air and water.
Oh, it's all easy when I've set the siren off, isn't it?
We're talking about some complicated hydrocarbon, which is a derivative of a petroleum...
Not petroleum, no. Well, no, coal. It's fossil fuel, which is coal, as we know.
Toothbrushes used to be alive millions of years ago.
The point is, we're looking for a substance that man has developed, which he uses to...
nylon.
Is the right answer. Well done.
Do I get points for saying it was developed in New York and London at the same time?
No, you get points taken away from you, because that's not why Oh, you did fall into that one, Rory. Thank you for that. No, it's a myth. It was originally called No Run by its inventor. He was called Carruthers. DuPont, the company for whom he was developing it, wants to call it nylon. Though they didn't trademark the name, you can use the word nylon, unlike another of their famous products. One that is used quite often to describe human characteristics. Teflon, exactly, non-stick.
Nice.
Teflon is a DuPont invention.
You'd have thought that you could just get a new head for your brush. You could have a handle made for you, perhaps just perfectly moulded for your own grip.
Yeah, so you use ivory or... Oh, no, hang on. But, yes, use
rhino horn.
Yes, or panda fur, or... panda bone.
The beak of an osprey.
Yes.
Stephen Fry's all endangered species bathroom cabinet.
Oh, I use his coelacanths to do my back.
No, poor old Carruthers. He gave us neoprene as well. He was a Harvard professor at the age of 28.
Wetsuits.
Wetsuits made of neoprene, exactly. And he invented that here, and he was a very young man, and then unfortunately committed suicide by taking saliva when his wife was pregnant. He must have been very miserable. What? Did I say saliva?
You said
I think
saliva.
you did.
That was a Freudian blowjob. I slipped on it.
The poor man Carruthers took cyanide and killed himself. And obviously that's very funny.
Why did he take cyanide? Had he run out of saliva?
I don't...
Where's the bottle of spit I've been saving?
Oh dear, I've made a bit of an ass of myself. Who is this?
Eros.
Yeah. Well, thank you for falling into our little heffalump trap there. It's actually the angel of Christian charity.
Eros.
Eros was the Greek god of love. This is the angel of Christian charity.
Why is it called Eros, then?
Because people mistakenly thought it was Eros because it had a bow and arrow. Eros is Greek for Cupid, and they thought it was like Cupid's dart. Originally, the arrow pointed up a particular avenue, and the idea was the...
Shaft.
It was bearing its shaft up Shaftesbury Avenue, which was named after Lord Shaftesbury, Ashley Cooper, the great...
I know who he was.
Tell me.
He was the bloke that passed all those acts in the 19th century to stop children having to work 95 hours a week.
Exactly right. It was a first, that particular statue. Do you know why?
First one on one leg.
No, not that. The material we're after.
Oh.
Bronze, copper, metal, steel, wood.
It's metal, certainly. Not wood. It wouldn't be the first wooden or metal statue, would it?
Aluminium.
Aluminium, there you are. Take 5 points, young David Mitchell. Very good
I know
indeed.
something about statues of military personnel.
Yes?
On horseback. If they're up on their hind legs, like that, it means they died in battle. And if they got one leg up, it means they died on service, but not in a battle. And if they got all 4 down, it means they just died after, years later.
Is that really true? If that's true...
It's really true.
I shall have the little L's, the QILs. Oh, they're flashing me now. This is an urban myth and not true, it says. They're very quick.
It feels like everything that I know is wrong.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Is that Socrates? Did he say that or right first?
That's what comes when you acquire your knowledge by overhearing blokes in pubs.
Yeah. It is a general rule that if any fact given you starts with the word apparently, what kind of creature was actually the first to be sent into space?
A monkey.
Oh, dear.
A squirrel monkey.
A And what did you say?
He said dog,
I
sir.
think he did say dog, didn't you, John? yeah, John said dog.
I bet it was something that they didn't know had gone into
No, they
space.
sent it deliberately. Fly. Fly is correct. Do you know what kind of fly? What sort of flies there was? Fruit fly. You divide points between yourselves. Very good indeed.
Why did they do that?
Well, they're very light, so there was no payload. They sent them up in July 1946 on an American V2, along with some corn seeds. But fruit flies, why are they used so much in science?
Because they can talk and they tell you exactly what's going on. If you're a fly and it's weightless, what happens then? Do you suddenly sort of stop flapping and go, hang on? This is what I've always dreamed of. no effort. They just say like that. In space, when they go to do number 2, they do it in the wall. They dock into the wall. You're all right.
All right, thank you, Davies. So, one of the things about fruit flies is they... Thank you.
But there's no sound in space.
No.
So you can't hear your own parts.
Amused, that's what's so sweet. He is absolutely adoring it. No, 61% of all known human disease genes have a recognisable match in fruit flies. Fruit flies also go to sleep at night, rather sweetly.
If they get a cold, then they get the common cold.
But they well be one of them. And the other thing is, every 2 weeks you've got a new generation, so any experimentation you do, you can observe very fast what happens. Scientists who work with fruit flies give them jokey names, and I want you to tell me why they're called what they're called. There's a breed, a gene strain, called the Canary Islands Barbie fruit fly. Why is it called that?
You've got no penises.
Yes, they have no external genitalia, quite right. There's one called the Maggie. Why would that be called the Maggie?
Handbag.
Bit fascist. Hates the unions, bit right-wing.
No, because it suffers from arrested development, like Maggie in...
The Simpsons?
Yes, someone in the audience got that before you, they must award themselves a point. So there's the Maggie one. There's the cheap date, which is sensitive to ethanol intoxication. China. The city of Jinan, spelt Qinan, but pronounced Jinan in China, is about the same size as Corby, you can see it behind us, and is also, by coincidence, the site of one of the country's largest steelworks. But what quite interesting material do they make their houses from?
I don't know, is it dinosaur eggs?
I'm almost inclined to tear up the real answer and say yes, but
because I've got one.
A Chinese dinosaur egg?
Yes, it was a birthday present from my wife.
Every evening, Bill, 4 hours on the egg, just in case.
Yes. I'm thinking about taking it abroad, you know. Taking it through the airport, you know, see if I can get it scanned for free, you know, just put it... So he goes, my God, what the... You know, I thought of doing that when the tortoise was ill, getting it saved. It's stone, it's fossil, obviously, it's stone, weighs... I thought it was a skull at first when I opened it, and I thought, that's a bit of a weird present, but I'll go along with it. Yeah, great. And they're huge, and they make very good building blocks, so they...
Well, it wasn't as gibberingly, drivellingly stupid an answer as it at first sounded, was it? No, it's not that. It is a very famous Chinese thing that these houses are
bamboo.
constructed of. Oh, dear, not bamboo. No.
Oh, sir. Yeah. Bootleg Coldplay CDs.
Bits of the Great Wall.
Yes is the right answer. Help yourself to 10 points. Absolutely right. Yeah, it's a rather sad thing, this Great Wall of China. It is disappearing. There's only 20% of it left.
Where has it gone?
Well, people just cart bits off to build pigsties and walled barns, and farmers just take bits because it's handy material. The Gobi Desert is encroaching upon the Great Wall.
Is it?
Yeah, unfortunately.
How rude.
Yeah, I know.
How does the desert encroach? Sort of like, you sort of look away and then...
Clay's grandmother's
footsteps.
I'm sure it was. It's the same way you get the armrest on a train.
They should convert it into flats or something, you know, something useful.
Wouldn't that be brilliant?
If they converted it into flat... Look, it's thick enough for flats. You just need to knock a few windows on either side. And then you could probably have, you know, 400,000 or 500,000 flats all the way along it. And then people would look after their own bit with, you know, window boxes and everything.
Or a retail opportunity. The Great Mall of China would... that would do it. But, no. But there you are. There are points all round to everybody who deserves them and none to those who don't. In the Middle Ages, what shape did people think the world was?
Flat.
I know we all think they did, but there's absolutely no evidence whatsoever. They all thought it was round. They all wrote about it as round. The Greeks knew that it was round.
Round and flat?
No, they thought it was a sphere. Terry Jones, the Python, who is something of a medievalist, as you may know, he blames Washington Irving, the American writer, for one of those being who started this lie, as he puts it. The Greeks knew it was round, he says. Chaucer knew it was round. Roger Bacon wrote about the curvature of the Earth in the 13th century. So, apparently...
Well, I think the majority of people didn't really care.
No. But they started...
As indeed, we don't now actually care that it's round. If it was square, it wouldn't bother me. I'd rush to the edge. In fact, I'd want to go right to the corner.
You'd sit on the corner.
How do we know it's round?
Yeah, huh?
Round the world tickets.
One is photographing. Photographing it was a very big help. We took a photograph and we saw that it was round.
Yes, but then you could say that about anything, about people going to the moon, and we know they didn't.
If it weren't round, all the flights of aeroplanes, if it weren't round, just nothing that we...
How do we know they just don't fly, just circle round for a bit and let you think that you're going miles and miles and miles and just come down, like, you know, a couple of hours away, and they've set Russia up a lot nearer than it is?
It's a really, 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 really long oblong shape.
On a track, like an electric bike, and they just move it.
Whizzing
the
around.
plane goes up, the plane doesn't move. They move the country in front of them.
Are all the stars round?
I can't answer that. I think probably most...
But yet you know what people thought 500 years ago.
Can I read books? Yes. Have I visited every star in the universe? No. Is that something that you find difficult to understand? You set me off. You've set Sir off again.
Don't you think that this series has reached the point, with the dedicated following who trust us, that this would be the point where you could say just one thing in a show? You could say, just like this, the world isn't round. It's been proven. Most people will now believe it who watch this show.
Well, I can say with some confidence, ladies and gentlemen, the world is not round. It is an oblate spheroid.
No, that's not what I meant.
No, I'm sorry. I was being literally...
Pine cone. If you'd said the world is shaped like a pine cone. Just to see how many letters we get.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see, wouldn't it? Get some at last, anyway. Apart from the... well, you know who you are, don't you? And I tried it, and it was a disaster. Yes, no, since the 4th century BC, almost no one in the history of the world has believed that the Earth is flat. It's a common misconception, and indeed the song lyric, they all laughed at Christopher Columbus when he said the world was round. But he didn't think that the world was round. He thought it was actually pear-shaped, funnily enough. Who was the only survivor of the Crimean War?
When did it officially end, then?
That's what you have to find out. Sebastopol and Balaclava and the charge of the Light Brigade, it's that war, yes.
And we got their cannons and made the VC out of them.
It was around the time the cannon was being invented. It was around the 1850s, 1854. But in those days, when Britain went to war, because of a very peculiar law, there was one part of Britain that was exempt from being called either England or Scotland.
Berwick.
Berwick upon Tweed.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely right. Berwick upon Tweed was given a special status as being of the United Kingdom, but not in it. So when British went to war with Russia, it was Victoria, Queen of Britain, Ireland, Berwick upon Tweed, and the British dominions beyond the sea was in the phraseology of the declaration of war. But in 1856, they didn't mention Berwick upon Tweed in the peace treaty, so it was still technically at war until 1966, when the mayor of Berwick upon Tweed actually
signed a treaty with Russia, saying now at last...
You can tell the Russian people that they may sleep easily in their beds.
I thought Berwick still was separate, isn't it?
They're in England, but they play in the Scottish League.
Is that right? Excellent. So there we have it. There's a war that went from 1854 to 1966. A creature that had been on a ship at Sebastopol in the war was still alive when the war ended. It was the only thing still alive. A tortoise is absolutely right. It was a naval tortoise called Timothy the Tortoise.
Isn't he just the one that just died?
No, there he is. He's fine.
He carried on living until 2004. Survivor of the Crimean War. He was the ship's mascot of the HMS Queen during the first bombardment of Sebastopol.
Did he actually fight in the war?
No. He could survive the war, but was in it, involved in it, in naval fighting tortoise.
You crawl back to your line, then you chuck him again.
Yeah.
The glorious fighting tortoises in the British Army.
They didn't use him to send messages.
That's why it took so long.
The enemy is coming.
Has he delivered the peace treaty yet? He's on his way.
Is the largest lake in Canada?
Width or depth?
Not depth. Not
Can
depth.
I attempt an answer at this?
Yeah.
Who cares?
Oh dear. Oh dear. We were predicting that one. Yeah. Who cares?
There are so many lakes in Canada, more than 1 million in Manitoba alone.
Yes.
And you can buy a lake and have it named after you. It's because the water doesn't drain away. There's no water table.
You can, but the one's really, really big. It's bigger than Albania. It's bigger than Belgium.
Is it one of the Great Lakes technically Canadian? Are they all American?
No, you've avoided our little trap there, actually, which Joe didn't by saying who cares. If you'd said one of the Great Lakes, it would have been a big noise, because this lake has to be entirely in Canada.
What's the difference between largest and biggest?
Well, in other languages, largest mean widest, I suppose, and biggest being just greatest in size. But largest we now mean to mean biggest. It originally meant wide. Large is wide in French, isn't it?
Right. Thanks.
I mean, we are very lucky because we have both Latin and the Romance languages and the Anglo-Saxon languages to draw on, so we can say big and large.
Yeah.
Say little and small.
Little and large.
Little and large, indeed. Funnily enough, when you said the deepest lake, the deepest lake is Lake Manitou. And Lake Manitou is a weird lake because it's also got the largest lake island in the world in it. And that island has got a lake in it, which is the largest lake in an island that's in a lake in the world.
This just goes on to infinity.
It does, doesn't it? No, the answer is the Great Bear Lake. None of the 5 Great Lakes is entirely in Why did Big Beard Wang regularly shave his pussy?
Well, I'm afraid I'm disappointed that we've got a cheap laugh from the word pussy.
I'm laughing at Wang, actually.
I think it's a person, perhaps.
You're right.
Big Beard Wang, who one could assume he had a large beard.
And he shaved his cat.
Well, he was a barber. He was a barber to a very famous man.
Was he a Chinese barber?
He was a Chinese
An emperor, was there?
A kind of emperor, I suppose, though. He would certainly not call himself one. But
Chairman Mao.
Chairman Mao, indeed. And Mao is the Chinese for...
Cat.
Cat! Exactly. Meow. Meow, you would think, but no, it really is. Mao is cat.
Is that cat on the end of Chairman Mao's...
That's why I'm smiling.
I don't remember that as one of those communist posters.
It means cat, Mao, and it also means hat, oddly enough. So, Mao Li Di Mao means the cat in the hat. When the Titanic sank, what was the first thing that happened to the crew?
Terrible luck for them, but they actually had their 6-month review. And...
They drowned.
Did you say they drowned?
I said they drowned.
Oh,
yeah.
dear, no.
No, I was going to say they were fired.
Every single member of the crew had their wages stopped at the moment of the sinking. They stopped paying them. The moment a ship sinks, it is no longer a ship, therefore you can't work on it, therefore the White Star Line paid them up to the minute of the sinking and not the other.
I would imagine that in a sinking situation, you'd hope to be getting time and a half.
This is it. Frankly, double bubble.
Just a little something at the back end.
Yeah. As soon as you're in the water, you've got to be looking for work.
Get on your pedalo and look for work. But apparently at the time, White Star were considered one of the more generous employers. I think it was £5 a month, not very much. Do you know about the Duff Gordon family on the Titanic?
And their terrible gin.
Very good. No, they offered the crew of lifeboat number 1 £5 to save their lives. Nobody's quite sure whether this was just greed, saying, I'll give you £5 if you save my life, or whether it was a thank you because their lives were saved. But whatever the result, the crew themselves were in terrible trouble for accepting a bribe. And one poor lad, Albert Horswell, survived. He was one of the lifeboat crew, got home, went to see his mother, who slammed the door in his face and never spoke to him again because she was ashamed that he had taken a bribe.
Yeah, she was also bonkers, though.
Yeah.
Well, Mrs. Horswell.
Is it true someone dressed as a lady?
Supposedly someone did, because it was women and children first.
I thought you said somebody dressed as a baby.
Lady.
Yes, cuckoo, indeed. I have a lollipop, and I have no control of my bowels or urination. I am indeed an infant, and I know you think I'm Lord Albemarle, but actually I am a little baby with a beard. Yeah. And, madam, might I tell you I've been a very naughty baby?
So along that path, the ones who were paid £5 were only the able seamen. How can you tell able from ordinary seamen? When you applied for a job as seaman on merchantry, you either registered as an able seaman or an ordinary seaman, and they accepted your word. But you kept a log of your work, which was the real proof of it, and it was called a certificate of continuous discharge. Tell me all about the 12 Frenchmen and the 12 mosquitoes. Dara O'Brien.
Once upon a time, there were 12 Frenchmen called Happy, Sleepy, Arrogant, Furieux, des choses comme ça, bof, and Zutelor.
That's 6.
Fenêtre, boulangerie,
Le table.
Le table, of course, and jambon et fromage, the twins. And they used to travel around with mosquitoes, solving adventures.
And what were the mosquitoes called? Fuzzy, stingy.
It was a very, very low-rent 1950s French detective season that involved, at some point, the extraction of a tiny amount of blood from one of the suspects.
Yes. Do you know what else a mosquito can be other than a...
It was a World War II plane made out of wood.
Made out of wood, exactly, made out of balsa wood and plywood. What was their great raid?
Tuck shop.
I don't know, was it made into a film?
It was. There were 12 members of the Resistance, the Maquis, and they were due to be shot by the Gestapo. And the Allies would send in these 12 mosquitoes to bomb the chateau in Amiens, so all the prisoners would escape.
I can't believe that they just blow the bloody doors off.
Basically, that was
the whole place with 12 bombers.
You're right. What happened was they had to go down an avenue of poplars, which was so narrow they had to fly.
Down the avenue of poplars?
Yeah, exactly like that. That's what you'll have to do. There were 700 prisoners in the prison. 102 were killed by the raid to start with. 74 were wounded.
Yeah.
Then 258 escaped, of which 179 were rounded up within the next few days by the Germans again.
My girlfriend's grandfather flew one of those, and he actually goes now and visits in Germany with the Luftwaffe pilot whose plane he shot down during the war. And they go and they sit around and, you know, go, ha, great days. But neither of them speak the other language. Like he doesn't speak German, the Luftwaffe doesn't speak English, but they sit there and...
Sit back and...
Yeah. The temptation if you're standing behind her.
And for over 50 years, that German man has been peeing in your granddad's tea.
We had an Airfix model of one of those. I gave it to my dad for his birthday, and he made it before breakfast.
You put the transfers on?
Yeah, painted it and everything.
Yeah. That's a pain, because you had to put them in hot water and wait for them to slip off. And then, of course, with chubby 6-year-old fingers, you just end up covered in swastikas. It's not a good look, really. You go to school and they think you're in the BNP, and it's, no, I've been trying to make a hind call, sir.
What happened, this is my question to you, what happened to 3/4 of the people accused of witchcraft in England?
Drowned, burned, killed.
We were much gentler than you might think. They were acquitted.
Really?
Yeah.
Is that saying the wrong message to witches, essentially?
We were apparently rather resistant to the idea of destroying witches in England, and unlike views espoused in so-called books, and I use the word book very loosely, like the Da Vinci Code. It is complete loose stool water. It is arse gravy of the worst kind. Anyway,
he's a blues singer.
Please welcome Loose Stool Water.
Very good. Excellent. Well, that particular panful of that material did claim that about 5 million women were burned or hanged around Europe for being witches. There's absolutely no evidence there's anything like as much as that. Probably about 500, probably less in England. And they weren't burned, they were hanged.
The lawyer would have said, maybe not go to court dressed like that.
Yeah. 2 possibly burned. That's the only evidence that 2 were burned. The rest were hanged, probably about 400 or 500 at the most. There are lots of Hammer films. The Devil Rides Out and those kind of things. Usually Peter Cushing, and sometimes, if you were very lucky, they would have Charles Grey in a huge white smock. Where do most tigers live?
Asia.
Most...
Asia.
What? I think you got in there first, didn't you? No, not true.
Not true?
No, not
Zoos. So you can have a couple of points off.
No, not zoos, neither.
Las Vegas.
Well, America, certainly in America, private hands. Most big cats are in private hands.
Yeah, I had to do a photo shoot once with a tiger, and these 2 blokes turned up with a big, enormous chain and a tiger on the end of it, and they said, shouldn't really handle them after the age of 10 months. I said, how old's that one? He said, 11 months.
There's a wonderful animal handler woman, a very gruff sort of woman. We were doing a scene once, this dog was just shagging everything. And this woman, they're a very odd mixture of severe and unbelievably twee. She said, any more of that behaviour, she said to the dog, we'll have a short, sharp visit from the smack fairy. It sounds like a drug dealer, exactly. Extraordinary. Smack fairy. The answer to our tiger question is the United States, especially Texas. According to the National Geographic, there are more tigers kept as pets in the USA than there are remaining in their wild habitats in Asia. As many as 500 lions, tigers and other big cats in the Houston area alone. Who invented the theory of relativity?
Oh,
this is one of your...
Oh, so little trust in the world.
It was Albert Egmont. I'm not going to say.
He was a very great physicist.
Which one?
Theory of relativity.
Which one?
The theory of relativity. Not the special one, not the general one. Very good question. The first theory of relativity. That put to rest Aristotle's theory of absolute rest, in fact. Because you're a bit of an old science bod.
Yeah, but, you know, not in a way that I'd like to be quizzed on television about.
I bet it turns out to be Einstein in an elaborate bluff.
How much do you want to risk the...
The cloak of doubt.
The big hitter. The biggest, really.
Newton.
Second biggest, then.
Einstein.
Oh, did you say Einstein? All that care! You
took so much care not to say Einstein.
You know, fish bite hooks.
No, Galileo Galilei. I'm thinking of Galileo.
He just did telescopes.
Tell him. Put him right about Galileo. Just founder of all modern physics.
Could he make a good pasta sauce?
Anyway, there we are. Einstein was responsible for the special and the general theories of relativity in 1905 and 1915 or 16. 15, I think you're right, yes, respectively. But the original idea of relativity... Alan, if you were knighted, what would the Queen say to you?
Arise.
No, she wouldn't.
Are you sure she doesn't say, no, I'm sorry, I have to draw the line somewhere?
Oh, very
Well, after his name, for which we'll say Alan, after Alan's name is announced, the knight-elect, Alan, kneels on a knighting stool.
What are the chances?
I
wouldn't turn it down, I'm not posh.
In front of the Queen, who then lays the sword blade on the knight's right and then left shoulder.
I'll be like that, cheer.
That's it. After he has been dubbed, the new knight stands up. Contrary to popular belief, the words "Arise, sir," ... are not used. The Queen then invests the knight with the insignia of the order to which he has been appointed, a star or badge, depending on the order. By tradition, clergy receiving a knighthood. What's the difference when clergy are knighted, if they happen to be?
They kneel on a corgi.
No, there's no sword.
There's no sword. You can't take a sword to a clergyman.
Exactly. No, you'd take a dagger, wouldn't you? Yeah, exactly. A scimitar or an axe. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The strict meaning of the word accolade is the salutation given on the bestowal of a knighthood, from the Latin meaning of an embrace around the neck, around the coll, as in collar. But do you know about degradation? And that's when you have your knighthood taken away. The last public one was in 1621, when Sir Francis Mitchell was found guilty of grievous exactions and had his spurs broken and thrown away, his belt cut and his sword broken over his head, and was then pronounced to be no longer a knight, but a knave.
Oh.
All by the king?
Yeah. It would have been James I, wouldn't it? Yes. Wow.
It's when she did Alan Sugar, did he go, you're fired?
You're degraded. You are a knave. What does the moon smell like? Yes, Joe.
Does it smell of Buzz Aldrin's underpants?
It might.
Did he crap himself there and bury some?
Well, one of them obviously did, didn't they? Wouldn't
Crap
you?
himself there and bury some.
I did that as a child. I pooed in my pants and buried them in the garden. But when I went back to check on them a few weeks later,
they'd gone.
They'd
You could have sold them. People advertise for dirty underpants in the backs of magazines.
Not in the Spectator, they don't. All I can say.
What's the moon smell of? Cheese.
Oh, Joe, you are sweet.
I thought that was hanging over us.
It was hanging over us. No. Get some points back if you know how many humans have walked on the moon.
12.
Absolutely. You both said it simultaneously and you both get 5
Difference
points.
is, I guessed.
Well, you still get the points. Anyway, apparently it smells of gunpowder. Lots of moon dust came back in the module back to Earth, and it's that mixture of silicon and iron and magnesium and calcium that marks out Special K, amongst other things, I think, that is also present in moon dust.
What's it taste of?
Wensleydale.
But what was Darwin's problem with brown owl, and why did he not describe it?
Now, clearly, if one makes a joke about Girl Guides here, like he was traumatised during a period in the Girl Guides.
Before...
Help me now.
We even predicted your mistake, because I think brown owl brownies.
Yeah. Yeah. He must have died before...
Before the brownies existed, exactly.
He probably ate it or something.
Ah! So he ate brown owls, you're saying?
Well, actually, he didn't, because he described it as indescribable, which is why he didn't describe the brown owl. Well, actually, as food, he meant, because Charles Darwin, one of the greatest scientists, one of the greatest men, really, of any age, was considered a very dim pupil and couldn't spell and was terrible at arithmetic and went to Cambridge. The only subject his father thought was fit for him was divinity. And he spent his time chasing rats and shooting and looking at animals and eating
strange animals. He was a member of the Gourmet Society, or the Gluttons, as it was known at Cambridge, and their aim in life was to eat as many rare and peculiar animals, like bitterns and hawks. But brown owl, they didn't like at all. And all the others became bishops and archdeacons.
Does this still exist, this club?
Exists? Stephen's the president of it.
Yeah, otherwise you write me around for fox on creme.
Right. I drink panda. That's the... Oh, it's lovely.
I've got a book at home. It's equivalent to the Collins Book of Birds from 1850. And after describing each bird, at the end it will say, for instance, a buzzard tastes a little bit milder than a golden eagle, but still quite palatable.
Does it have a wine recommendation at the bottom? You suggest a Chablis or a New World Merlot.
Do you know what you should drink with the beating heart of a cobra? This is a dish in China where you get a cobra and it's brought to the table alive. They then slice it open, rip the heart out, and it's beating on the plate there. You have to chase it around the plate, I suppose. And then you drink the blood of the snake as the wine.
Actually, I ordered the lasagna.
What's the most disgusting thing you've ever eaten, Alan?
Earwax.
Your own? It was your own, that's right.
It's really horrible.
Bitter.
I mean, if just a tiny bit on the end of your fingers.
Sweet and sour.
Imagine if you had to have a sandwich of it. Really like a block of it.
Anyway, a phylum feast is held on the 12th of February every year by zoologists and biologists, in which they try and eat as many different species as possible, in honour of Charles Darwin, whose birthday that was. Why do children play with their food? The sixth child of Sigmund Freud was called Anna Freud, and she took up her father's beacon of battiness. She was the first person to write about denial. That's Sigmund on the right.
For me, playing with food came out of being deprived in Liverpool when there were no toys.
So did you make sort of things out of meatballs instead of Lego?
Mum used to put a plate of turnip tops and cockles.
So, as a youth, your toys were cockles?
My first toy was toy cheese. for Christmas. Honestly, that was a metal-like cheese portion, which you used to wind up, I remember this, on the lino, and put it down. I used to make, like, cheesy movements.
Cheesy movements. That is a very good reason to play with foods, and it makes me all the sicker at the weirdness of Anna Freud. Anna Freud believed, by playing with their food, they were really playing with their excrement.
A child could play with its excrement
if it wanted to.
If it wanted to.
Of all human phases that you're in, lower infancy is the one where you can most get away with playing with your excrement.
Oh, he's got his hand in his nappy again. But that's the one thing that we don't touch.
The Freud family is a good example. Anna Freud suffered from depression all her life and never had children.
Sigmund Freud was terrified of the number 62, and so he refused to ever stay in a hotel that had more than 61 rooms in case he got number 62. And the first time after he'd made this rule, the first room that he was booked into was number 31. And he went, oh, see? Half of 62.
Yeah, but 62 rhymes with poo. 6 looks like a poo, pursued by a swan.
You know, one of the things that people say is sort of a test of whether you're anal is whether you keep your records in alphabetical order.
Yeah.
All that, and I think, well, surely it depends on how many records you've got. I mean, if you've just got 2 and you keep going back and checking, and going, oh, ABBA, ZZ Top, they're still there, that's all right. I've got a room full of bloody records. I keep them in alphabetical order so I can find the one I want. Apparently it means I've got a problem with my arse. How is that?
I shouldn't think, in her time, they had alphabeti spaghetti.
That's true.
Which was the main reason I play with my food every breakfast.
I just insert my meatballs up my arsehole whenever they turn up on the plate.
And if they want to call you anal, it's up to them.
It's in their court. The ball is in their court.
The ball is up your arse. Ineffably, imponderably stupid and wonderful. Each one of you here, you should find you have a picture, which is a picture of a genuine United States Patent Office patent application. Arthur, have a look at yours, shall we? And Clive, yours looks like this. And Vic. And Alan, you've got a picture too.
Oh, it's some sort of electrified Christmas stocking. It's a shoe bomb. Why would you want an electrified Christmas stocking anyway?
It's a Santa Claus detector.
Oh, of course.
It's got a motion detector. You hang it amongst your other stockings, and when Santa Claus comes, it triggers a light and an alarm.
There's no such thing as
I
Santa.
know there isn't.
Waste of time.
Waste of time.
Clive, this looks like a bra where you've got a little nozzle and you can blow down it to inflate the bra. So this is clearly designed for a woman who maybe thinks
A
one of her...
woman with no arms.
Oh, yes, I wasn't going to mention that. She's got one breast she feels is slightly smaller than the other, but she doesn't make a big thing of it, except when she's walking past somebody who she fancies, so she can quickly and surreptitiously inflate the breast.
It's odd enough your breath was going in the wrong direction. You were blowing when you should be sucking.
So you suck...
You basically have drink in your bra. And you can surreptitiously suck your drink out of it.
It's only going to be for red wine, though, isn't it? Because it's going to be too warm for white wine or beer or...
Oh, what about Ovaltine?
Oh!
Can I have one of those Ovaltine bras? I've heard so much about. She came in here reeking of Ovaltine.
What's yours, young Arthur?
Yes. I remember Clive Anderson in his Thyrsis. I can't hardly believe it, but maybe someone has actually patented the Como.
You're absolutely right. On May the 10th, 1977, Frank Smith from Orlando, Florida, filed a patent for a method of styling hair to cover partial baldness using only the hair on a person's head.
But why is his head the colour of a baboon's arse?
Have you got the full details of this that I could take away and study just for general interest?
If you look at this picture, though, what you'll see is a horse with its tail. And that's just the end of it.
Yes.
Vic, what have you got for us?
This is a device for sucking those special gases out of a U-bend. And it looks like an actual pan is filled with some sort of worms, which probably create the gas in the U-bend.
Well, you're more or less right. It is a device for allowing you to breathe in the event of a fire in a hotel room. You pop it in. It's called the toilet snorkel.
So your last moments before the fire burns your backside off, you spent sucking in basically lavatory air.
Lavatory air.
Darling, I smell fire. Where's the toilet snorkel?
The Great Fire of London destroyed 13,200 houses, 87 churches, 44 livery halls, and over 4/5 of the city of London with a capital C. How many people died in that 5-day conflagration?
I think it's 4 people. It's some very low figure of...
I'm going to give you the points because it's 5 people.
5 people, oh, well...
Yeah, very good. Very good. Only 5 are recorded. The maid of the baker who started the fire, Paul Lowell, a Shoe Lane watchmaker, an old man who rescued a blanket from St Paul's but succumbed to the smoke, and 2 others who fell into their cellars in an ill-fated attempt to recover their goods and chattels. The mayor, actually, Thomas Bloodworth, went back to bed on the first night saying a woman might piss it out. The previous Great Fire in 1212 killed 3,000 people. What are the 4 main religions of India? Yes, Alan.
Sikhs.
Yep.
Buddhism.
Oh, no, it's not
Hinduism.
Hinduism, yes.
Christianity.
Yes, and one more. You've only said...
Islam.
Muslim.
Islam, yes. In correct order, they are Hindu, Islam, Christian and Sikh.
No Buddhists
There are
in
Buddhists.
India?
It was invented in India, of course. The Buddha was an Indian, but it's not one of the 4 main religions. There are 805 million Hindus. There are 134 million Muslims. There are 23 million Christians. Just 23... It's 22.5 million more than there are in Britain. And there are 19 million Sikhs. Buddhists, there are 7 million of them. 0.7% of the population. Although Buddhism was founded in India, its spiritual home today is, of course, Tibet. The blah, blah seal to La Bastille. Do you see what I've done there?
It's in Paris.
Paris is good.
Yes.
Very good. Can you tell me anything else interesting about La Bastille, either of you, Mark?
It was a prison.
It was a prison.
And it was stormed on July the 12th.
14th.
14th, but close, 2 days out.
You say 2 days out, but I'd have stormed it 2 days early. I'd have been on my own.
There were only 7 prisoners, weren't there?
Is exactly the right number. There were only
2 lunatics, 2
Yes!
thieves... 2 lunatics, 2 forgers, 2 thieves, and a very bad mime artist.
Wasn't he convinced he was Julius Caesar, one of them?
Oh, this is good. You're getting points too. I'll come to this. This is impressive. And listen to this. We have 4 forgers. We have the Comte de Solange, who was inside for sexual misdemeanours of an unspecified kind. 2 lunatics, one of whom was an Englishman or an Irishman, they're not quite sure, called Major White, with a waist-length beard, who thought he was Julius Caesar.
You know, the Marquis de Sade would have been in the prison at the time of the storming of the Bastille. It's a very tragic story, this, because he was in there for a long time, but a week before the storming of the Bastille, he was transferred to another prison because he'd been upsetting passers-by by shouting obscenities at them through a tube out the window.
It's as if you've been reading my card, Mark.
And so all his stuff, it was tragic, because he spoke to his wife and he said, look, can you make sure you go round there and pick all this right? I've spent years writing in there. But she thought, well, you know, no rush, is there? It's the Bastille.
Safest place in Paris.
To that? And then I think she went down there on the day of the storming of the Bastille and thought, oh, shit.
Absolutely right. 10 days before the storming was when he was moved to Vincennes. And the authorities were upset because he was shouting not just obscenities, but anti-monarchist sentiments at passers-by. So they moved him to Vincennes, and otherwise he would have been released. It was rather like the Tower of London. Even at the Tower of London's height, it was quite a civilised place to be a prisoner. I mean, you got wine and food, and you got an allowance, you got tobacco, you could move around as much as you like.
So this was like the Groucho of the prison world.
Yeah! Tell me why the Cray twins were imprisoned in the Tower of London.
Were they ravens?
No, that's a cunning answer. The ravens do have weird names, and they're literally prisoners because they're kept in cages at the moment because of the worries of bird flu. They're called Gwillem, Thor, Eugene, Munin, Branwyn, Bran, Gandalf and Baldric.
And Dave. So they did actually have the Cray...
They had Ronnie and Reggie of the 3 Cray brothers.
Was there a officers' strike or something? There's nowhere else to put them?
No, they were a bit younger than that.
Did they go on a school trip?
No.
National service.
Very good, absolutely right.
There was a barracks there, wasn't there?
There was a barracks there, and that was their one. It was the City of London Regiment of the 1st Battalion of the Royal Fusiliers, which is where people like Michael Caine had gone when they'd done their national service. People in the East End, that was their local barracks. But they were actually imprisoned there because when they did their national service, they don't like it. Ron and Reggie didn't like it. And they beat up their training sergeant and went home to have tea with their mum. The weird thing about Ronnie is he was pretty psychopathic, and as most people know, he was gay. But he had this weird thing that everyone had to admire his boyfriend. So they'd have a meeting of the firm, and there'd be the heads of Plaistow and Hackney and Dalston and all the local branches of the firm. And there'd be Ronnie, the colonel, and there'd be a 17-year-old youth called Cyprian or something. And Ronnie would go, hello, everybody, this is Cyprian. And hello, Cyprian. And Ronnie would go, isn't he gorgeous? And they'd all have to go, oh, he's lovely, Ronnie. Oh, you pick him. Oh, you lucky dog. David Putnam, of all people, used to manage them for a very short period of time. I know, it's weird. Yeah, he did. They wanted to go legitimate. And he tells the story of how they were with David Bailey, who took those famous photographs of the 2 of them in suits, you know, standing one behind the other. And they were all in this pub. It wasn't the Blind Beggar, but it was a Cray pub. Ronnie had gone off. He was the insane one. So they're left with Reggie, who's supposedly the normal one. And these couple of drunks come in, and they suddenly spot David Bailey, and they go, oh, you're David Bailey, aren't you? Go on, take me photograph. And David Bailey goes, no. He said, no, don't be a f***ing arsehole, take me photograph. He said, no, I've run out of film. Don't give me that, take my photograph. Reggie gets up and looks at himself in the mirror across the bar like that, and suddenly goes, baff, like that, and knocks him right across the room, and he bangs his head against a piano, and blood starts to trickle down. And his mate goes to him, and they just flee. And David Bailey, to his credit, is very angry. He says, Reggie, you are a tosser. And for God's sake, I get this every day. I'm a photographer, people know what I look like. I can handle it. You don't have to do that. You could have killed him. There was this terrible silence that Reggie had been shouted at like this. And he gave a little shy smile. He said, well, to tell you the truth, Mr. Bailey, I'd had my eye on that all afternoon. He'd been eating my sandwiches. Very extraordinary. Anyway.
We can move on. Anyone fancy a game of arrows while we're in the pub? On the hockey, then, what begins with D and is something you always see the players doing in darts matches? Johnny.
Dangly wrist.
Dangly wrist?
The great darts player always, before they wobble their stomach, they do this with their wrist. I'm sorry, it's an unfortunate...
What kind of pubs have you been playing darts in? Oh, hello.
Yes,
they're very noisy there. No, Jimmy, no. Well, it's 2006.
What did...
We can't be doing hello ducking, can we?
Is there some word that they use that means throwing the darts? Or is it darting?
Well, what you've done is you've cleverly avoided our trap, which was drinking, because that's what they don't do.
No,
it's actually against the rules of competition darts to drink during a game of darts. When they first televised it, they would drink quite a lot while they were playing. Then the game fell into decline, and it was that fell whore comedy that was responsible. Darting.
You join us during the final stages of this truly titanic struggle between Di Fatbelly Gutbucket and the English champion Tommy Even Fatter Belly Belcher. It's game on. And it's a good start. Double vodka. Single pint. Another double vodka.
100 milligrams.
100 milligrams.
This was such a problem, this sketch, apparently, for the public perception of darts, that it fell into decline and became regarded as a slobby game for drunkards.
You know, in Holland, they play it in schools.
Well, they have the great Raymond van Barneveld, who's won the darts many times. I remember the commentator saying, he's quite a man, he is. In his spare time, he studies the universe. Who's the famous darts commentator, do you remember?
Sid Waddell.
Sid Waddell.
Who is it double first at history, something like that?
He certainly read history at Cambridge University and has said some famous and extraordinary things in his time.
There's only one word for that, magic darts.
That's the greatest comeback since Lazarus.
Yeah. Alexander the Great conquered the world at 33. Eric Bristow is only 32.
Absolutely. He actually was slightly more poetic. When Alexander of Macedon was 33, he cried salt tears that there were no more worlds to conquer. Eric Bristow's only 27. And then you have the rather odd one, he's as happy as a penguin in a microwave.
What was the most dangerous military stratagem ever devised?
Vehicle reversing.
Was it Hannibal's first crack at the Alps with chihuahuas?
The purpose of this one was to terrify the enemy. Imagine you're in the front line of an army and you're massing against the front line of another army, and the front line of the opposing army does something so extraordinary that you think, oh, my God, we're never going to beat them.
Is it from a Carry On film? Is it when they lifted their, kilts and they didn't wear pants? It was amazing.
Carry On Braveheart. No, it's neither of those.
They flagellate themselves. They insert something within them.
They chop their own heads off.
They chop their own heads off.
The front line of the army chops their heads off. How you do that? Grab your hair and just slice with a very sharp sword.
Who was that, then? The Scots Guards?
This was in 496 BC.
It would be the Swiss army, because they'd have something on one of those little knives. No, that, wouldn't they?
Self-decapitation.
It's a country you know well, and you're wearing its flag at the moment.
This is the flag of Vietnam.
Well, that's right. We're talking 496 BC, the army of King Gujian of Yue. And he had convicted criminals in the front line and told them they had to cut their own heads off. You may say, well, why would they do that?
What's the worst that could happen?
The worst that could happen is if they didn't, then all their families and all their children would be massacred as well.
It.
They didn't seem to worry. They knew they were going to die anyway. They were condemned to death. What do we know about decapitation? Does it kill you straight away?
I know if you cut a duck's legs off, it can still swim.
It can float, but it can't swim.
Floating
I'll leave a little bit of stumpage.
No. It wouldn't be able to, it would have to catch the currents. It would evolve into a whole different animal. It would probably get a wing up as a sail or something like that.
Didn't they discover, like, for example, at the French Revolution with the guillotine, that, like, heads could kind of, like, chat
Carry on
after,
chatting.
So...
Well, no, you're right. There was a story during the terror of the French Revolution that two members of the National Assembly were guillotined and their heads put in the same bag straight away, and one bit the other so hard they couldn't be separated. What, just the heads?
That's holding a grudge, isn't it? For all intents and purposes, you're dead. Let it go. Yeah, you didn't get on. Whatever.
They were French. What is the bravest species of animal?
I think it might be the ichneumon, the mongoose.
Yes,
yes. Because the mongoose is basically like a sort of glorified ferret, and it goes out of its way to kill cobras. And cobras can kill you just by looking at you the wrong way. So I think that's pretty brave.
Why does it kill cobras? Because if it can only eat cobra, it's not brave, it's just sensible. It's just, you know...
No, but cobras, you know, they come out of baskets, they sing, they dance. Sort of Les Dennis of the snake world.
Yeah. Well, they're literally the hoodie of the snake world, aren't they? They've got the little hoods.
They're not that brave, though, because as far as I'm aware, the mongoose nearly always wins. I've never seen a David Attenborough where he suddenly goes, "Oh dear, the mongoose has copped it." What's difficult about this question, I think, is you need some kind of comparative unit of bravery. I think...
And we have one. How do we show how brave people are in a graded order? Soldiers,
Medals.
for example. Medals?
Right.
There are bound to be loads of horses and dogs that have been ridiculously given medals if they understood what they were doing at all.
Pigeons get them, they get medals for making
I'm going to give you the points, Alan. You said pigeons, didn't you? Pigeons.
Yes. Points?
Yes, pigeons mean points.
Brilliant.
Maria Dickin, who founded the People's Dispensary for Sick Animals. In 1943, she instituted a medal called the Dickin, which is the equivalent of a Victoria Cross for animals that serve in the armed forces.
She sounds really bonkers.
Yeah.
I think if you start giving the animals medals, you've got to start promoting the animals, and at some point you get a pigeon in charge of the whole army.
To be brave, you need to know the element of risk. So I reckon probably the bravest is something like a robin, because I've seen robins mob cats. You know, that's the equivalent of us running towards...
Is this as in Batman?
A tiger.
Well, because that's just not fair, is it?
No, that's...
Well, anyway, the Dickin Medal has been awarded 60 times, and 32 times it's gone to a pigeon. Once to a cat on board HMS Amethyst. The Yangtze incident.
Yangtze incident, 1949, isn't it?
Entire crew saved by a cat.
Yeah.
Well, he'd ate all the rats on ship.
That's not bravery, though. That's just greed.
It is really, to be perfectly honest.
Fat moggy.
What do babies have that adults do not?
From above head.
Horns.
Horns?
Horns.
Oddly enough, almost close.
They have a cranial cap. They have a divot there that you can store things in.
But the bones in the head haven't fused together yet, have they?
They haven't. Not only in the head, that's the point.
They're completely spongy babies. You can bend them pretty much. Like plasticine, you can just, like, make... If it's an ugly baby, you can just make it slightly better looking, you know, just give it horns if you want.
What's the protocol for when you see a really ugly baby? Do you
I'll
know?
tell you, people show you their babies on their phone now, and it's like a cashew with some hair coming out of it. The thing to say is, nice phone. That's what I think. I think babies have the ability to know that they are ugly, which their parents don't.
They don't have kneecaps, do they?
Aren't you mixing them up with mer babies?
Their kneecaps are not made of bone while they're babies, and there are all kinds of parts of them...
What are they made of?
They're not made of bone, but are made of cartilage.
Or Play-Doh?
And they have 94 more bones than adults.
No, they don't.
Whoa. Yeah.
You're making
They
this
do.
up?
No, no. A baby's body has about 300 what are called soft bones that haven't actually formed bone material. They are actually cartilage, a sort of soft, gooey thing. And they eventually fuse to form the 206 bones of the average human body. Where are a quarter of those bones housed?
Foot.
In the feet. The feet is the right answer. Yeah, a quarter of your bones. 52. Very good. Yeah. Very good.
How long do you have to wait for your baby to harden?
It's in the natural course of
You
things.
put it somewhere like with Airfix kits. I used to put them in the airing cupboard. I mean...
kill bake it.
You fire the baby.
If you can imagine what a kamikaze pigeon unit did.
Fly into things, fly into planes, engines.
You're getting there. It's a very complicated...
Fly down guns.
It's a manual...
Nest. Terrible nuisance to get out.
It was to fly at ships, but in a very particular way, inside a missile. It's got a window, right? No, I'll explain it to you. Here's a pigeon. I've got a pigeon here. Voila. And I have a ship. Yeah. And you train the pigeon to peck at a ship. And every time it does, it's rewarded with grain. Then you put it inside its missile with a glass front, right? And a ship comes into view, but it's slightly on the left. Well, the pigeon's behavioural response is to peck towards where it is. And this activates a relay. And as it gets nearer the ship and it gets bigger and bigger, it pecks more and more and more and more and more, which tells them that they're on the right track. They get really, really close and it explodes in a ball of flame. Destroying...
And that's the thanks it gets.
That's the thanks. It maybe gets showered with grain at the last second, just as a thank you, who knows. But it's a guidance system.
Did it work?
It wasn't used.
Right.
But... what they did, using this man Skinner, this behavioural psychologist's experiments, was they got a bit of glass, and instead of having a target on it or anything like that, it was just a plain piece of glass with an orange dot on it. And every time the pigeon hit the dot exactly like that, it would get rewarded. Can you imagine why that would be useful?
I was thinking about this just the other day. It's funny you said it.
Very slow form of execution for someone. You put an orange dot on them, put a pigeon in the room, you could activate 12 years.
No, pigeons have very good eyesight. And if an air rescue helicopter is searching the sea and someone's in a little orange dinghy or in an orange life jacket, the pigeon will always see it as a little dot in its screen. So let's go like that, thinking it's going to get fed. And that will alert the pilot. And it works. And that's beneficial and no one dies. Someone might even get saved.
Yes.
And then you eat the pigeon on the way back. The passenger pigeon, is that a familiar species to any of you? It's one of the saddest stories. There were flocks of them in America, and I'm not kidding, that were 1 mile wide and 300 miles long.
Good Lord.
They would have 2 billion of these birds. They were just the most extraordinary sight in nature, probably.
So they're shitting whole hills.
Yeah, absolutely. Can you imagine?
If you're caught under that, you are dead.
You are. Seriously dead. In 1896, they killed the final flock of 250,000 in one day. Knowing it was the last American sportsman, and I use the word sport quite wrongly.
Did you know about the Puccini gun? The composer Puccini was a great shooter of birds, as a lot of Italians are. When I was in his house at Torre del Lago, there was the Puccini gun, which he made himself, and he'd be sitting there writing, you know, lovely opera, and he'd hear a snipe outside the window. He'd grab this thing, which had the bore on it like a drain pipe, and he could bring down 50 snipe in one go.
Oh, you see, that's sport. He's Italian. Italians, Americans, I mean, really. That's horrible. But can you imagine that? And then on one day, knowing you're wiping out an entire species to kill 250,000 birds in a day.
Did they know it was the last 250,000? And they sort of thought,
knew.
Fantastic, let's finish them off.
Yeah.
That was the last flock, and then the last bird itself died in the Cincinnati Zoo in 1914. She was called Martha.
So that the pigeons in Trafalgar Square, they're wild rock pigeons.
Wild rock doves.
Wild rock doves.
Yeah.
Do they know that? Because you don't tend to see them on the cliffs at Beachy Head.
They're confused by our rock cliffs, aren't they? That's the problem. Pablo Picasso was a keen pigeon fancier.
His father was a painter of pigeons. It was a style in late 19th century Malaga. Instead of, like, flower genre painting in France, whatever, his father was a pigeoniana, or whatever it was called. And when he discovered how good his son was, he gave him his brushes and never painted again.
Fantail pigeons he collected himself, and of course he called his daughter
Paloma,
which is Spanish for a dove or pigeon.
Indeed.
Una paloma blanca, you
yes.
remember. There we are. So, B.F. Skinner was the name of the man who designed these missiles aimed by pigeons who were tapping in the nose, and it was tested successfully, but never actually saw action. What is the most dangerous sport in fact, the most dangerous country in the world?
Contemporary dance in Scotland. Hopscotch in Afghanistan? I don't know.
You're very close.
Well, it's going to be Afghanistan or Iraq, isn't it?
Well,
they're quite two
odd enough, in between those two... there's a kind of-
Kazakhstan.
No, a much better known one.
Subazakistan?
It's another stan, but the best known stan.
Pakistan.
Pakistan.
They play a lot of cricket.
They do play cricket there, but they also have this very dangerous sport. So dangerous, it's been banned for all but 15 days of the year. It's a child's pastime that has become aggressive and extreme.
Conkers?
No. It's mentioned and indeed sung about in Mary Poppins.
Buckaroo?
Mary Poppins.
Flying a kite.
Flying a kite. The idea of extreme kite flying
is dangerous.
You have to sever your competitors. You have to sever your competitor's kite from its string, and so the string's actually made of metal with glass, sharp, abrading glass. And motorcyclists get garroted because hundreds of people do it all over the country.
Who told you this, Stephen? This is nonsense. This doesn't happen.
I'm afraid it does.
No, I saw it, Channel 5, when kiters go bad.
They shout, "Bo-kata!" Kite down.
What about when they garrot someone? What do they shout then? Oops.
Yes, probably. It's the spring festival of Vasant Panchami, or Basant is when it happens. And there's people against it. The Kite Flying Effectees Committee, people who are affected by kite flying, have tried to ban it completely.
Do all the kites have to have the face of Des Lynam on them?
He is a god in Pakistan. Yeah. How big can the kite be? What's the heaviest kite you
Huge.
could have?
They could weigh anything up to 4 tons.
Well, the largest kite ever made weighs nearly a ton.
100 metres
48
long.
foot by 36 foot.
That's
And
right.
how many people does it take to fly that, then?
50.
50 people.
Yeah.
50 men, it says here.
50 men or 25 fat birds.
It has 200 strings. The smallest is 1.25 inches across.
You can get them in the market and stuff. You see those blokes doing those tiny kites? Have you seen them?
No.
Miniature kites.
That's right.
On bridges and things or something.
How do they? You start it using an electric fan, one of those little handheld electric fans. It just flies up.
Yeah.
Invisible string, which makes it very pleasing.
Then
so
you go home
fine.
and cry. What am I doing? What the hell am I doing in my life? I want to be a doctor. Look, everybody. Oh, what's that point?
What do you use to make a difference engine? Do you know what a difference engine might be?
It's a machine, a 19th century, 18th century design to solve equations.
Yes, a calculator, a computer,
It was one of the first computers, yeah.
Indeed, and there is... it was
used cogs and stuff.
Charles Babbage. He never completed it. He ran out of money. Only in 1991 was it fully reconstructed from his plans, and it worked perfectly.
It's thought that he put a couple of mistakes
Deliberately,
into it,
yes.
so that if anyone stole the plans and tried to make it, it wouldn't work.
Mr. Darrow. Well done.
Presumably, this is a bit like when you go out at night, going to the back of your DVD and jamming a fork into it repeatedly and then going, well, if they can steal it, it'll never work.
That's
slashing your own tyres before your holidays. the joke's on you, thief, OK?
But in fact, in answer to the question, the reason he couldn't complete it was so vast, with these huge cogs in. There is a material he could have used to make it, if only it had existed, which was invented in 1901 by one Frank Hornby.
The bloke who did the model railway.
The bloke who did the model railways also invented another staple British child's toy.
Fake hedges.
That was all part of the... But it was a totally separate invention.
Action Man, Meccano.
Meccano is the right answer.
Those are the only toys I remember.
Yeah, and there is a Meccano difference engine at work. It really does work. And it can do trigonometric functions, logarithms. And the point about it is it's programmable. It's not like a clock or something that's just simply dedicated to one analogue task of telling you the time. This is actually programmable. He was an odd man, though, Babbage, and he does rather live up to the idea of an early computer nerd. Tennyson wrote a poem which included the line, "Every moment dies a man, every moment one is born." And he wrote back, "If this were true, the population of the world would be at a standstill. In truth, the rate of birth is slightly in excess of death. I would suggest that the next edition of your poem should read, every moment dies a man, every moment 1 1/16 is born." strictly speaking, the actual figure is so long I cannot get it into a line, but I believe the figure 1 1/16 will be sufficiently accurate for poetry. What a man.
That's the best impression I've ever heard of him, though.
It is a good impression, obviously. He also invented the cowcatcher thing that goes on front of a locomotive.
I'm presuming by the fact that this is the design, it didn't succeed in catching many cows as much as dividing them.
Tell us something interesting about door hinges.
Door hinges used to be made out of wood.
Yes.
But they weren't very effective. And so then they started making them out of metal. And it's got a lot better since then.
You can clean them with brown sauce.
Well, that's true. That is true. Have you ever hung a door on its hinges? Have you ever fitted hinges to a door?
Yeah, we have.
We have.
You have?
Both, yeah.
All right, so how do you space the hinges out? Let's say the top hinge is 6 inches from the lintel.
Yes.
Where would the bottom hinge be? 6 inches from the floor?
No, it would be, that he's actually taking seriously that we really have hung doors.
I have hung a door.
Oh, she has really hung a door. I've hung a bloke.
I've probably hung it wrong.
The point is this. Let's say this is the jamb. So the up one, that's 6 inches from the top, but that's 9 inches up. In order to create the effect of them being equally spaced, because you're always looking down at the bottom one, and there's foreshortening, if you actually equally space them, it looks wrong. It looks as if the lower one is too low. So you have to do it to that. But in America, it's 5 and 10. And in some western states of America, it's 7 and 11, like the shop. Yes. It is. 7 inches down, 11 up. I know, it's a shocker. You heard it here first, Joe.
I'm frightened now.
I bet you are.
Is there a doctor
I
here?
want to imagine you measuring your door hinges when you get home and say, Stephen was right.
I'm going to send you a
6,
picture of me
9.
measuring my door hinges naked.
Yes, please. I want it. But the middle one goes exactly in between the two. So there's the 6, the 9, and then in the middle. There's the interesting thing about
Doors are 78 inches long.
All doors.
Domestic doors, generally, you might have to take
That's
a bit
6'6".
How do you know that?
Bought a door recently.
You see? And who hung it? Who hung it on its hinges?
My friend Keith is a carpenter.
Well, he'll know about that.
He's also a stand-up comedian, so it's a right laugh having him round.
Oh, my God.
The door handle kept turning like that, and turning and turning and turning, and I couldn't get into the loo. And I really needed to go, so I kicked the door in. It's the only time I've ever kicked a door in.
It's rather
brilliant.
Good.
And
Great
it was a really
feeling.
cheap, flimsy door, and it smashed like that, and it exploded, and the door bit fell down. There was wood everywhere, and I burst in and had a crack.
Lovely. I've heard of the Isle of Dogs, but what famous islands are named after birds? Any thoughts? There are quite a few.
Puffin Island.
Is correct. Any others?
Penguin Island, Sparrow Island. Blackbird Island, Eagle Island, Heron Island.
Thrush Island.
The Canary Islands.
Oh, but no! So the Canary Islands aren't... There's an example.
That's not the Canary Islands.
That is actually Bird Island we're looking at. You're absolutely right.
It's in the Seychelles.
In the Seychelles, you're quite right. Yeah, no, the Canary Islands are named after dogs. Insula Canaris means the Isle of Dogs, and the birds are named after the island. Do you know about canary wrestling?
No.
It's just a form of wrestling in the Canary Islands.
How does it work?
Well, you stand in a sand circle called the terrero, and basically, like sumo a bit, your feet have to be in the sand. If any other part of your body touches the sand, you're beaten.
Is it canaries wrestling?
No, no, people from the Canary Islands.
Oh, I thought it was canaries that were... I just didn't see why they did. Why would they wrestle?
Well, you have cockfighting.
Well, yeah, they're angry animals.
Do you know about La Gomera? Obviously, not having been to the Canary Islands, there is an island called La Gomera. Do you know how they communicate across valleys in La Gomera? They don't shout.
Mobile phone.
They don't. Not. It's a language they use, but instead of using their vocal cords, they fart. No, they whistle. See if you can tell what they're whistling. It's in Spanish. That is John milked the goats. I'm not making these up. The next one. That was Domingo was sick. Honestly. Let's hear that one again, because you can hear the Domingo, now you know. Listen. Domingo!
I can't help noticing. Although it's in Spanish, he does have a Liverpool accent.
Why don't we just talk to each other? Because it's bouncing off the canyons of the gorges of the valleys of La Gomera.
This is still on the Canary Islands now, is it?
Yeah.
Is this the one that's going to fall in the sea and wipe out the whole of the eastern seaboard of America?
I'm glad you asked me that, Mr. Clarkson, because that is La Palma in the Canaries. The volcano on La Palma is said that if it goes off in a big way, it will cause a tsunami that will engulf the whole of the eastern seaboard of the United States. What's the most interesting thing a dog can smell? Yes, Neil.
A dog's dinner.
Yes. To a dog, that is the most interesting thing a dog can smell.
Another dog's bottom.
Yep. Oh, there you are. Oh, no.
My crotch. But they all do.
They do. Oh, dear, dear. Can you blame them? They're only flesh and blood. This is really interesting because it's terribly touching, really, that they can smell this. And
Cancer.
It's cancer. No, really? Yeah. So there was a woman who, her dog kept pawing at her leg, and she had nothing on her leg that was peculiar, just a normal number of moles, but it was then interested in one of the moles. And when she wore shorts, it tried to nip it. And so she went to the doctor, and the doctor found that this was a malignant melanoma, and it taken out. And doctors have found that dogs can smell bladder cancer, lung cancer, 99% efficiency rate at smelling it in people's breath. Lung cancer. Quite extraordinary.
So have I got cancer of the bollocks, then?
Well, that's what I was wondering.
Let's not discuss.
No, let's not. Insane. We have something like 50 million of these olfactory cells up here, and they have 220-odd million. But their sense of smell is infinitely better than that. It's not just 220-odd times better. It's thousands of times better. We have machines that can smell a part in a billion, which are fantastically sensitive and complex. Dogs can smell one part in a quadrillion.
I'm worried about this dog. Has it been nailed? It can smell my crotch.
Yeah.
We all can.
I'm sorry.
It is. What is 3 times more dangerous than war?
3 wars.
Is it doing a Yui on the A40?
This is according to the United Nations.
It's probably something really inane, like cycling, trampolining.
It's work. More likely to die at work than you are at war.
Does that include soldiers?
What if you work in a shoe shop near a war?
You always guarantee you will find some cunning way to make me not know anything. And I don't know what the statistics are for people who work in shoe shops near wars.
How many times have they actually had a war in a shopping centre? It's very rare that first world countries get invaded, but if they did, you could have a shootout in a multiplex, couldn't you?
If you lived in South London, you'd find a lot of wars in shopping centres.
I've been arrested in a shopping centre.
Have you? Tell us why.
For an act of war?
I knocked a security guard's hat off.
Oh, a very Bertie Wooster thing to do.
Yeah. I didn't even do it on purpose. I was taking my jumper off. I was absolutely arsehole as well. And you're very much hearing my side of the story. I called it actually rather a story of defence.
I read a thing once that said 1/3 of all accidents at work go unreported. How do they know?
Lumberjacks have the most dangerous job in America, it appears. 122 deaths per 100,000 employees.
So that song's entirely wrong, is it?
Yes. Exactly.
How could you die doing that? Just trees falling on you?
You're saying trees falling on you like that's a bit of a pansy way to go. That's a legitimate way to die.
It's just the only real sort of peril, isn't it?
There's a lot of chainsaws.
But also, you're not very well protected in panties and a bra, are you?
And also, if you're a lumberjack, you're supposed to be good at it. Yeah. You're not supposed to chop down trees and go, oh, it's the other side, isn't it?
Well, now, yes, according to the United Nations, more than 2 million people die from work-related accidents, as opposed to 650,000 people a year who die in war. What was Darwin's problem with brown owl? And why did he not describe it?
Probably ate it or something.
Ah! So he ate brown owls, you're saying?
Well, actually, he didn't, because he described it as indescribable, which is why he didn't describe the brown owl. Well, actually, as food, he meant, because Charles Darwin, one of the greatest scientists, one of the greatest men, really, of any age, was considered a very dim pupil and couldn't spell and was terrible at arithmetic and went to Cambridge. The only subject his father thought was fit for him was divinity. And he spent his time chasing rats and shooting and looking at animals and eating strange animals. He was a member of the Gourmet Society, or the Gluttons, as it was known at Cambridge, and their aim in life was to eat as many rare and peculiar animals, like bitterns and hawks. But brown owl, they didn't like at all, and all the others became bishops and archdeacons.
Does this still exist, this club?
Exists? Stephen's the president of it.
Yeah, otherwise you write me around for fox on creme.
Right. I take panda. That's the... Oh, it's lovely.
I've got a book at home. It's equivalent to the Collins Book of Birds from 1850. And after describing each bird, at the end it will say, for instance, a buzzard tastes a little bit milder than a golden eagle. Yes. But still quite palatable.
Does it have a wine recommendation at the bottom? You suggest a Chablis or a New World. Which religion causes harm by sticking pins into dolls? Oh!
I don't know, but I bet he set it up.
Pins into dolls. Who do that? Oh, hello. Voodoo. He did. He said voodoo. Thank God. He takes it. No, it isn't. Voodoo has never involved the sticking of pins into dolls.
What so a religion does?
European witchcraft.
Oh, I thought it was the Methodists.
Do you know
a bunch of heretics?
Do you know what the dolls are called in European witchcraft? They're made of wax, or they're made of ceramics, made of wood, straw, all kinds of things, but there's a word for them. Do you know? It's rather nice. Hoppets. Called hoppets.
Isn't that lovely?
The closest, anyway, that voodoo ever comes is they do have these little empowered figures called bocceos, which have small holes in into which you put tiny pegs to channel healing energy. So it's a generous, kind thing, voodoo, to help people. It had made its way through slavery from West Africa to the Caribbean in particular. Of course, Haiti is where it's most associated with. The missionaries and so on came and they wanted to discredit the local religion in order to raise up the claims of Christianity. So they said it was full of cannibalism and zombieism and things that they had actually gotten out of European witchcraft. And so it was really... Poor old voodoos rather suffered from it.
They should get you to redo their image for it.
Yeah, why not? New double-action voodoo.
Take two poppets into the shower.
Yes. What's a vomit comet? Yay.
Is it a new alcoholic snooker player?
No, it isn't.
Or is it a branch of electrical retailers in Slough?
Good.
If you don't feel very well in space and you throw up out of the window.
You started so well, and then you suggested the idea of a window that you could open in a space capsule.
Well, I'm assuming there'd be an airlock, or maybe you just have your own helmet and then vomit out.
It's a plane that they train astronauts.
You're absolutely right, Phil. Jupiter's helping us
They float about and they throw up and they bring them down again.
Exactly right.
Covered in their own business.
It's exactly right. Well done. It's a military spec 707, and it does parabola flights. It does about 30 or 40 in a mission.
They shot about 20 minutes of footage for Apollo 13 in it, but they could only do it in 60-second chunks because that's as much as you're allowed to be weightless before they have to bring you back down.
You're absolutely right. It's actually even less than 60 seconds. Yeah, it's about 40 seconds.
It must be padded.
Well, you don't need to because you don't really hit it with any force when you're weightless.
Well, I imagine when you stop being weightless...
It comes back slowly, I guess, because you're problem.
You go it's also covered in sick.
Go from 0G...
Interesting point from a personal point of view. If you weigh a lot, are you more weightless?
We have the interesting physical question of the difference between mass and weight. Weight is a phenomenon that doesn't exist except by virtue of gravity, because we are live in 1G.
Tell that to society,
yeah. Fatness, on the other hand, is a completely different issue. It doesn't alter.
can do that. It doesn't alter whether you're weightless or not.
So if you went into space, in a spaceship, quite a large spaceship, and you had a mouse and an elephant...
They were both weigh the same because they were both weigh zero.
Would they become weightless at the same time?
Yeah.
Or would the mouse lift off quick and then taunt the elephant?
Well, anyway, you're absolutely right about the vomit comic, and it was used to train astronauts in weightlessness. About a third of them would get incredibly sick, about a third moderately, and a third not at all. But supposedly it was the anxiety rather than the actual experience that made them sick. Name a saint who comes from Ireland.
Patrick.
Oh! He went to Ireland, but he didn't come.
None of the patron saints of Britain are from where they're supposed to be from, are they?
George is Palestinian, St. George.
Yes.
Patrick is Welsh.
British, certainly. He came from around the River Severn area, apparently.
St. Bernard was from a shelter.
But you must be able to name some genuine...
Yeah, St. Columkill, St. Bridget, St. Kevin.
St. Bridget. Do you know what her great miracle was?
She laid down a cape because she said, I want some land to build a convent. She said, well, you can have whatever land your cape covers. And she laid it down, and the cape grew like ginger beer in every direction. And taken over the entire field.
That is one of her great miracles. The other one was that she could transform her used bathwater into beer. Very Irish sort of miracle.
That one wasn't taught to us in primary school in Ireland.
Kevin?
Kevin lived halfway up a mountain in Glendalough in Wicklow and was like an Irish Francis of Assisi. Small animals would nest in his hand, and rather than crush the fecker and get on with his day, he would let the bird rest there and heal or whatever. And he'd go, please, I've got stuff to do. Do you want to bring up any more of these scars of my childhood right here?
It is astonishing to imagine an education like that.
I will say this for it. Like, I do remember once going out with a lady who was raised atheist, and an utter chore to walk around a gallery with. They go, who's the guy on the sticks? Is he the same guy who was in the shed earlier on?
Who is St. Bartholomew? Because I went in the museum in Venice, and there was a painting of him, and he's a spit of me. I was a spit of him. Anyway, it was a virtually full-size picture, and it was uncanny and a little bit frightening, because he was only wearing a nappy and he'd been shot with an arrow.
His day is the 24th of August, I know that. That's St. Bartholomew's Day. And there's obviously a famous hospital in London, St. Bartholomew's.
But he's probably the reason why they say always wear clean underwear in case you're in an accident, because he had to go to A&E with an arrow and a nappy on. To sit in the waiting
so
room.
long, they named the hospital
after him.
Lord, there you are.
Well, a lot of them had arrows. St. Sebastian was a famous one to be shot with arrows.
Well,
but
maybe it was St. Sebastian, maybe it wasn't St.
There is a Mantegna St. Sebastian that does look not unlike you, it has to be said.
Do you know what? I think it might be St. Sebastian.
I think it was St. Sebastian. St. Bartholomew's death was that he was flayed alive, and most paintings of St. Bartholomew have him with his skin draped over his arm, his own skin.
No, that wasn't him.
That wasn't him, no.
I've seen that statue in church. I always used to think when I was a kid that he just had a sort of beige-coloured coat.
His own skin. Anyway, the patron saint of Ireland went to Ireland but didn't come from there. He was kidnapped as a child, sold into slavery to Ireland. And then when he went on to the continent, became a monk, he wanted to come back to Ireland to convert to Christianity and cast out... What was particularly clever about Clever Hans, the horse, who was rather famous in his day?
Couldn't it count or give answers to something?
Yeah, not just count, it could do square roots. But it wasn't quite a con, it was something else.
Wasn't it they could read body language,
Exactly
basically?
right.
You could see people going...
Sure.
Is it? And they're going, ah! And they
Only
stop.
much subtler. It's basically what Darren Brown often does. And if you train yourself to know how to read someone's body language, the tiniest movement of an eye, the tiniest flexing of a muscle somewhere, all those sort of things, you can, as it were, read someone's mind. And this is what the horse was doing.
But Darren Brown's a bit brighter than
He's a lot
fish.
brighter than the horse, we have to
Darren Brown,
say.
do you know, he's got one great trick. You know when you've got an empty seat by you in a train, and you don't want anyone to sit there? He says you're insane to put things on the chair to stop people sitting there. The trick is, as they approach, you smile at them and pat the seat.
That's very good. Yeah. Horses are just stupid, I'm afraid. And every day they have to reinvent the world. You know, you go, oh, what's that? It's a piece of paper. Oh, what's that? It's a hedge. You saw one yesterday. Oh, Christ's sake, get a grip. Oh, everything. Oh.
You looked so much like my nan then when you were...
It's a hedge, Nan!
What connects gelignite, saccharin, and the rings around Uranus?
This is what I call a fantastic night out.
Well, if this is about discoveries, the only thing I know about gelignite is it was invented by Nobel of the Nobel Prize.
Exactly, it was, yes.
And this is a safety version of dynamite.
Gelignite is safer than nitroglycerin,
Yes.
which is what's inside dynamite. Nitroglycerin escapes from the dynamite and it blows people up, including Nobel's brothers.
If you get that on your hands, you can get a headache, and they call it having banged head. I learnt that on Brainiac.
You're absolutely right.
I have reason to believe that it was invented by mistake.
Hooray! Top marks, absolutely right. They're all serendipitous, accidental inventions.
When were the rings around Uranus discovered? Quite recently, I think.
The rings of Uranus were discovered in 1977, actually.
When did it stop being called Uranus?
About 5 minutes ago, I said Uranus. I suddenly noticed that it could sound like your anus.
I can't remember who discovered it, but the guy who discovered it wanted to call it George Planet
He did.
after the king. But
Herschel, his name.
Herschel, there.
1781, yes.
You can't ask for anusol in that way in a shop. You have to pronounce it anusol.
It's a slightly embarrassing product. Let's call it anusol.
Can I have some cockwort go? I mean, it might as well be. Ridiculous.
And whilst I'm at it, I'll have a packet of those spunk bags.
Well, anyway, Alfred Nobel was trying to make dynamite more stable, and he discovered by adding collodion. He'd had some on his finger. It was used, I don't know if you've ever used it as an actor, if you've ever had to have a scar. It tightens on the skin very hard. They used to use it as a sort of liquid plaster. He'd cut himself, and he thought, this is a very odd stuff. And he just thought he'd try mixing it with lots of other things, and he accidentally mixed it with his nitroglycerin, and it formed a jelly, which you could throw around, unlike nitroglycerin, which, as you know, is very, very unstable. Saccharin, he forgot to wash his hands after playing with some chemicals, and then found his food tasted sweet, so he was an American, obviously, because he ate with his fingers.
There's a huge number of things that are discovered by accident.
Trousers.
Trousers were discovered.
When somebody accidentally fell into 2 drain pipes. Hey, presto! No more embarrassing walks.
That's like the story of Roquefort, when a young shepherd boy, just picture the scene, he's dropped his cheese in a hole.
I often picture the scene of young shepherd boys dropping their cheese in a hole.
And 6 months later, he's sheltering in the cave, and he found this bit of cheese, he's starving, and it's all rotten. And he's like, oh, well, what the hell, I'll eat it anyway. It's delicious. Yeah. And that's how blue cheese was discovered, children.
The 3M company were after a paper glue that would stick cards and paper together really strongly, and one of their research chemists was so bad at it that he just... But it sort of stuck, but you just peeled it off, and so came up with the Post-it note, which was an accident as well. Caffeine, silly putty, Viagra, and another accident, of course, the Americas.
Yes.
They're not all successful. It was Gandhi's first name.
Oh, Jeffrey, wasn't it?
Jeffrey, it wasn't Jeffrey.
I don't know. Indira Gandhi, that was his granddaughter, was it?
No, they weren't related. She was Nehru's.
Oh, she's not even related to him?
No. Well, at least you've avoided our trap of not saying Mahatma.
But that's not a name, though.
Yes, it's not a name. Do you know what Mahatma means?
It means, can I have my hat, please, mother?
Funny enough, W.C. Fields almost got there before you, because he wrote one of his films under the pseudonym of Mahatma Cain Jeeves, as in Mahatma Cain Jeeves. So there you are. No, it means great soul in Sanskrit, and it was a title awarded him by a follower. As early as 1915, he was called that.
Was it Andy?
It wasn't. It wasn't Andy Gandhi.
Is older brother Randy Gandhi?
Oh, you said Randy Gandhi, didn't you?
Oh, is it?
I think we had decided it was minus 150 for anyone who said Randy was his name. Randy Gandhi. No, it was actually Mohandas K. Gandhi, the K standing for Kami. When you know about whom I am talking. Had she been eligible, She might have been elected US president. She's a trained scientist. She has larger breasts than you might imagine. Jonathan's alert. Her maiden name, Roberts.
Thatcher.
Oh, dear. Margaret Thatcher's maiden name was Roberts, but this particular née Roberts has over 1 billion pairs of shoes and yet stands only 11 inches tall.
I'm above Ed.
Thumbelina.
Not Thumbelina. This one exists.
11 inches tall?
Yeah.
Barbie.
Barbie is the right answer. Yay. She was named after one Barbara Millicent Roberts from Willows, Wisconsin.
If Barbie was a real person,
Yeah.
she wouldn't be able to stand.
Yes.
Anatomically.
Yeah, exactly.
Her feet are too small.
If you sort of blew her up to 5'6", her feet would be size 3, her breasts would be 39 inches, and she would just
But
go...
you wouldn't have her stand up anyway, would you? You'd only want her supine anyway, wouldn't you, if she had those kind of...
Is that right? It's also apparently true, according to researchers at the University Central Hospital in Helsinki, Finland, that her body shape lacks the 17 to 22% body fat, which would enable her to menstruate. But what was it she managed finally to get in the year 2000?
Pregnant.
It was a piece of something that...
The Shroud of Turin.
Not a bra, some part of her body. Nipple, not nipples, thank you.
A navel.
A navel is the right answer. She finally got a tummy button. Very good. Absolutely right. Barbie philosophy. Barbie spoke in 1992 for the first time. Do you know the kind of thing she said?
Where's my navel?
You could have said that.
No means no. Stop looking down there. I don't have bits.
Will we ever have enough clothes? Was one of the first.
It's a paradoxical frog, Ken.
Yeah. I love shopping.
Do you? But what did Barbie say, Stephen?
Math is tough. As we know, Barbie, whose full name was Barbara Millicent Roberts, was born in 1959. She's done everything, including running for president 3 times. What was the second commonest cause of death for women up to the year 1800? Yes.
Kestrels.
What a wild stab in the dark.
Childbirth.
Childbirth was number 1.
Oh, right.
Very good that you...
Was Kestrel's number 2?
No, it was number 2 I was asking for, and I took that to be your answer first time round.
Was it dehydration from having to lick the carpet clean because hoovers haven't been invented?
Were these deaths at night? Because I could go with owls.
Let me say it's no kind of bird of prey.
Not even a swan?
Not even... No.
Swans flying at women really hard with stiff necks until they went through their bodies like a javelin.
No.
Women lying all over the British countryside with swans.
No.
No? Was it horse riding accidents?
No, that's, if I may say so, a great deal more intelligent, and I don't mean that in a patronising way.
Pulp by the husband.
Oh, hello. No, domestic violence was not it. It was domestic.
Being pulped by their sons.
That would still be domestic violence.
Falling down the stairs.
No,
Being ducked
it was
as a witch
trying to do
down
something.
there.
It was engaged in a domestic
Cooking.
activity. Cooking is the right answer, yes.
Death by cooking.
Yeah, largely because their dresses would catch fire. I don't know why that's funny. It is.
The second most common cause of death.
After childbirth, amongst
What happened to you? Set light to herself in a...
A lot of their husbands came in and went, blimey, that's a big roasty.
What is the first computer ever to beat a grandmaster at chess now doing?
Anybody there?
Is it filtering calls for BT?
You're so close to being right.
If you have a billing query, move knight to bishop 3.
Oh, very good. It's actually slightly more disturbing. It's working for United Airlines as a reservations clerk.
Didn't Kasparov say, actually, that he found it actually had intelligence, it was shifting? It was actually deeper blue, I think, when it beat
You're
him.
absolutely right.
Was
Deep
it named
blue...
after... Isn't IBM called the Big Blue?
It
Isn't
is.
that its nickname?
Yeah, it is. And that and an amalgam
of Deep Thought.
Deep Thought, which is...
In The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, yeah. I thought it was split in half, actually. It was in museums. They took
Well, yeah, they did. I mean, they're only using part of it. It was immensely powerful.
But didn't they cheat? And actually, what Kasparov pointed out is that it managed to spot his trap in the 6th game or something.
Absolutely right. He set a trap in Game 2, which a computer could only have avoided by thinking creatively, leading Kasparov to accuse IBM of cheating and leading Stephen Fry to accuse Johnny Vaughan of cheating and reading his cards. It was so accurate. Well done.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, excellent. I watched Gary Kasparov playing the match against Nigel Short in London. It really is absolutely terrifying. You can feel this energy coming out of him. He hunches over the board and really moves the pieces. Even the way they move the pieces have names, you know. Vasily Smyslov, who was a very great grandmaster for a long period in the 50s, he used to move his pieces like that and give a slight twist.
Oh, flourish!
And still to this day, known as the Smyslov screw. It's the way just take...
So little
as if you're screwing it into the board. It's really extraordinary.
But he did complain that it was actually starting out to show intelligence rather than just cold logic. I know
Exactly.
200 million permutations it can think ahead or something.
200 million positions a second can be analysed, yeah.
Why don't we phone United Airlines and set a trap?
Yes, brilliant idea. Me to seat A7.
Doesn't it kind of restore your faith in the human mind rather than being cynical about IBM? The fact that, you know, he's going up against something that can do, what, 200 million processes a second? It's amazing. It's close to autism, though, what he's got, isn't it?
He happens to be more intelligent than most. Some of them you wouldn't trust to sit the right way in a lavatory, to be honest, but that much of your brain is taken up with the processing you're doing. It's not surprising you're not safe to use the street unattended. Who's suffering from Shagger's disease?
Oh, I did, you know what I mean? Oh, bloody Shaggy.
Taxi, I'm off.
We didn't see that one coming. Is it something to do with shag pile carpets and the dust that comes from the shag pile, that it's drawn in through the nasal passage into the lungs, perhaps called woolly lung?
I love that idea, but it's not that.
How are you spelling this Shagger's disease?
No, that's a good question.
Yeah,
How you spell it? It's actually spelled C-H-A-G-A-S, Shaggas.
I think it's some sort of virus or a bacterium or a...
parasitic.
A parasitic disease.
It's a parasitic disease.
Is it some sort of equatorial disease? I'm sure I've had an injection against this or
If anyone
something.
needed an injection against Shagger's disease...
Yeah, what now? You're doing history!
It's infectious.
There's a famous person who had it.
And what's our letter of the series?
D.
D. It's a famous
Darwin.
Charles Darwin had Shagger's disease, and he described it. It's pretty unpleasant, I have to say.
Did he get it off the beagle?
He did.
Oh, look how it took him.
The description of Shagger's disease is unpleasant. Vomiting, preceded by shivering, hysterical crying, dying sensations, half-faint, copious and very pallid urine.
This is premenstrual tension.
What about this one? This is an odd one. Now, vomiting and every passage of flatulence preceded by ringing of ears. Mine is followed by ringing of ears.
And he had this for 50 years.
For 50 years he had that. Very sad. Amusing name, but by no means an amusing condition. Shagger's disease is a serious problem still for millions of people all over, particularly South America. It was discovered by Carlos Chagas. It's unique in the history of medicine, inasmuch as it is the only disease that was entirely described.
What's the best thing to do with a dead donkey?
Yes.
Christmas dinner. A lovely Christmas dinner. If you're having the big family round, a donkey will go a long, long way. A big old cavity, plenty of stuffing.
Can he be hung like a dead donkey?
People had this idea that donkeys knew when their death was coming and went away and apart from everyone else, like elephants are said to do. And therefore, to see a dead one was apparently very rare, although they're common. So it was considered very lucky. And you have to jump over it 1, 2, 3 times. The word donkey, when did it come into the English language?
When was Don Quixote published?
Oh! No, it's very odd. The word was ass all the way through the 16th, 17th centuries, most of the 18th century. In the late 18th century, it suddenly appeared, the word donkey. It was pronounced donkey, like monkey.
If we wiped out every single mule on this planet today, all of them, by next year, there'd be 10,000 of them.
Really?
At least.
How would that work?
Because they're hybrids. They can't breed amongst themselves.
No, exactly, yes.
They can't actually breed amongst themselves, though, so they rely on that.
I see
you
what
could
you
whack
mean.
them out,
So...
you'd still have horses getting donkeys, so you still get the mule population up.
You'll still have horses getting donkeys.
Yes. I wanted to put it mildly. I didn't want to say boning them.
Which way round is it, though?
It's the female horse.
is correct, and the male donkey. So it's the donkey that does the shagging.
The donkey's little.
Yes.
Yeah, I know.
Yes.
So donkeys are quite intelligent. They have to find a box.
No.
Because in one department, Phil, the donkey is blessed.
Ah.
You see?
Oh, that's a long reach, though, still. In fact, the donkey can do it from a different field. It can just...
And they have little...
If it chooses.
And they have a very Leslie Phillips way of treating their lady. They go, hee-haw. That's right, yeah. And the other way round is called a hinny. Did you know?
The what?
Hinny, a male horse and a female donkey. It's called a hinny.
A hinny?
They're much rarer. When the female horse gives birth to a mule, 99.99% of female mules are sterile, and the males are invariably sterile, but they don't know they are. So they have to be gelded so that they don't shag all the time. What about donkey's milk? Do you know anything about that?
Donkey milk?
Yeah.
It probably makes an amazing cheese.
Well, oddly enough, it's the one thing it doesn't.
No.
But Phil, come on, you're naive. Sometimes, honestly...
I want donkey cheese!
In India, they have always in the countryside fed babies on donkey's milk. It's very nutritious indeed. It contains oligosaccharides, which are very, very good for you and have all kinds of immuno-helpful things, don't they, Dr. Garden?
I'm sure they do, yeah. They're good for bathing in, too, isn't Cleopatra in ass's milk?
She was in ass's milk, absolutely, in pure donkey's milk. Papal, the wife of Nero. 300 donkeys were milked to fill her bath.
Big girl, was she?
Big girl, yes. What sort of hair does an underground fluffer deal with?
Is it anything to do with the tube? Is it underground as in...
Is the right answer. You avoided our trap. Nothing to do with films and pornography or anything.
Is it to do with cleaning the rails?
Cleaning the rails.
Gangs of 6 every night go down, gather up the hair. 30-mile-an-hour winds come when a train enters the station, and a lot of hair gets blown down into the tunnels.
Yeah, that's how I lost mine, actually. Most of it is Tottenham Court Road on the
And it's statically attracted to the rail, isn't it?
Well, it's a prime cause of fire.
I don't understand why you can't have... You know, like you used to have a cleaning tape for your cassette deck.
Yes.
I can't have a cleaning tube. You just send a big furry train down.
Well, that's the fluffers. What's happened to fluffers in the porn industry?
They're no longer used.
Yes, why would that be?
I wish... David, why is that? Porn industry, I feel it's your question.
It's a VAT issue.
Health and safety as well, I think.
It's something else beginning with V. Viagra. Done the man of business. The fluffer, for those who don't know, was the person in a porn film whose job it was to excite the membrum virile of the male artiste.
And then turn it into an apron.
That's it. Yes, fluffers clean the tracks, they save lives and they stop trains running late. It's a really tough and underappreciated job, and I think they deserve a round of applause from us. Hooray!